Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Timberlane Regional School Board meeting of September 21st. Call the meeting to order at 7:31. Mrs. Belcher, could you call the roll, please?
Peter Buelow.
Here.
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Stephanie Doobie. Kim Farah. Here. Donna Green. Here. Dan Guide.
Here.
Sue Sherman. Here. Gregory Spiro.
Here.
Kelly Ward.
Here.
Seated at the board table this evening is the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. O. Metzler, and Student Representative Brian Lavoy. The presence of other district administrators as well as Timberlane Teachers Association officers will be reflected in the meeting.
Thank you. We all rise. Brian, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, Brian, you are up first here as our student rep. Tell us what's happening.
All right, so very brief. This past week, both the 6th graders in the middle school and then the 9th graders at the high school went on their opening of the school year, team building kind of field trips. So the 6th graders went to Camp Lincoln for a few days, did a bunch of programs over there. And then the freshmen up at the high school went to Adventure Lore, which is always a great time for all the kids to, kind of bond together and do a lot of fun things as a class and, get ready for the new year. Just this past week, there was the college fair up at the high school. Over 100 different schools were there. There was amongst 2 days. We had a bunch of career technical apprenticeships, 2-year, 4-year colleges. Myself included, as well as other juniors and seniors, really had a good time at the college fair. We learned a lot. There was a lot of great representatives there, and gave us a lot of great information. So obviously, we'd like to thank Guidance for setting that up as well, because they're very important for our futures. Also, this past week was the Timberlane High School Hall of Fame 2017 inductees. That's something that happened in the past week. It was some past members, in being inducted to the Hall of Fame here. And then in regards to Spirit Week up at the high school, I have a message from the student council officers and things like that they wanted me to read. So Student Council has and continues to work tirelessly to meet the concerns of all those who have spoken up about Spirit Week. A lot of work by the advisors, officers, and members of Student Council goes into planning Spirit Week in order to make it as enjoyable and memorable for the students as possible. Student Council regrets that Spirit Week was pushed back until November 13th through 18th. Student Council looks forward to more open communication regarding Spirit Week and future events and will continue to work hard and make sure these events are enjoyable and memorable for the students at Timberlane Regional High School. And then other than that, I believe that's about it. So, yeah.
Nice job. Thank you very much. I was unable to make that dinner last night. I got called back in business at the last minute, so congratulations to all the new inductees to the Timberlane Hall of Fame. I recognize a few names on there that gave me a lot of good memories. So there was some very well-deserving people on that list. So we'll go into our current business here. First item on the current business is a donation. So there is no delegates or individuals. No one asked to speak, so there's no delegate. We have a donation here from Mr. Kelly's company here, so is that going to be Mr. Ward's? I'm sorry, Kelly Ward's Fabrication. Could you please speak to this? Thank you very much.
I apologize for the
Yes.
confusion. Okay, we're in receipt of a donation from Ward Fabrication for the materials and labor to install a roof hatch to the new observation platform at the middle school. The total donation is $1,614.25. So I'd ask for the board to accept this donation from.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the donation from Ward Fabrication.
I'll second.
All those in favor of accepting? Opposed? Thank you very much for the donation.
Sorry, I missed that. Was
There was one
Everybody
opposed.
except Mrs. Green accepted it.
7-1.
And wanted to thank, and
Yes.
I'm embarrassed, but Mr. Wood, he's right here, but I want to thank him. He does a ton of work for us. Thank you very much. It's really, really awesome. And we appreciate all your help.
Yeah.
Mr. Green, if I could make a comment. I do appreciate the contribution, but I think the district should actually form a proper business association with another enterprise that does similar service. So that's why I'm not in favor of the donation. But
Well,
thank you.
You're welcome. I'm definitely always in favor of quality work, especially when it's free. Thank you. So, thank you. Okay, next item, agenda. Timberlane Regional High School Behavior Action Plan, which I'm assuming I'm seeing a lot of staff members here, so this must have something to do with this.
Teamwork.
Light?
So if you could, please identify yourselves for, because for new people, or, you never know, we always pick up fresh viewers, Woody, so if you
I'm
could
Don
please.
Woodworth, I'm the principal of high school. I'm here with Assistant Principal Heather Roy, Ben Morse from the Science Department, and Meg Guanci from the English Department. They're both teachers, and a little later in the presentation, they'll be able to answer questions and speak a little bit to the changes that, from their perspective, that we're going to be presenting to you tonight. So, after last year, we like always take a look at everything that we want to improve. Discipline and teacher response to discipline were in our sites. Actually, I'm not sure this is the slide. This is a different version of the presentation. So that's not the PowerPoint we want to show you. So rather than take you through a PowerPoint that we're not going to show you, we'll take you through this version, which should be what you have. in your-
We have copies of it.
Yeah, we have the 17, 18.
Okay.
Sure I do.
What you'll see initially on the first page is our goal, which, to break it down for you, is to continue to improve student behavior, and secondly, to increase the degree of satisfaction that the teachers have through positive reporting that they would make over time about how the discipline process is going. So we're trying to support teachers more in the process so that they feel that they understand what's going on with the discipline situations that do exist, and that we're meeting them with the appropriate support at all levels of our discipline plan. So moving to the next page, you'll see that we have a 3-level plan. The first level is classroom level, and that involves everything that a teacher has in their control to deal with students in that environment. They can call parents, they can do a number of things, and we'll get into that on the next page. The second level is support level with the deans. So when they have a student that's becoming more of a chronic problem, they're not successful in changing the behavior through their first level of response, they can consult with the dean, get some advice, and determine if it's something that needs to come to a third level, which would be administrative support. The assistant principals are the primary people we're talking about. It could be me, but on most things that we're talking about here, we're talking about classroom level behaviors that escalate or don't get solved through the initial interventions that teachers give. All right. Those are broken down over the next couple of pages, and it kind of delineates the types of things we're talking about. Could be seating changes that teachers suggest, or conferences with parents or teachers, talking with the student. Basically, the communication that they need to do to try to support that with parents or other people in the building. Then working with the dean, you're collaborating with the deans to try to say, what have you done, how has it gone, how can we improve on that, or is this something that we need to move forward? And then finally, when it gets to the principal's office, we take a fresh look at it, we'll do our investigation, we will also try the same types of things, parent conferences, referrals to people that are experts in the areas that might be impacting the behavior, et cetera. So that's the basic plan. What we want to talk about now are the things that we've done that are different this year, because everything you see there is very similar to what we've been doing all along. So it's not the process necessarily that has changed, but some of the other aspects of what we do, which you'll see in the action step.
So we really wanted to take a proactive approach this year with our new schedule. This was a great time to make some changes. So we had many discussions with staff and faculty over the summer, and this is what we started with this year. We wanted to monitor student movement in the building. As everyone knows, unstructured time is the time where sometimes mischief happens. So we wanted to, just with the schedule, there's only 3 times of passing during the day when there used to be 7. So that's helped tremendously just reduce the hallway traffic. We have a revised pass system. I'm sure Brian can speak to that as well. All students are on the same page. It's the same language. We introduced this to teachers before school started. We gave them a PowerPoint slide so they all could use that on the first day of school so everyone knew exactly what to expect. We have increased hall duty stations placed throughout the building. When we changed our schedule, we were able to get rid of our study lunches, which took up a lot of time for teachers to be doing duties. So now we have more teachers in the hall able to kind of be a presence and just track what's going on. We always have an expectation of teacher and admin in the hallway at any passing time. During lunch periods is usually our busiest periods. We also rearranged our building a little bit, and we moved all of our study halls to the same section of the building, which is near our library, our academic support center, and our writing lab, so that all students, if they were in a study and needed to get support or access a computer, they didn't have to travel throughout the whole building. It's right next door, so it was easy access, and that also helped reduce. I don't have this on here, but we did put doors in the CAF. There are many reasons. The air conditioner, it's keeping the air conditioning in, the noise level out, and it also keeps some of the students from wandering out during cafeteria time. So that's been a great help. Just with the implementation of block scheduling, just with the new schedule, it's helped tremendously, like I said, with the fewer passing periods. This is allowing more focused time in classes, less distractions throughout the day, project and performance-based assessments, which are keeping students engaged. We were able to schedule common planning time for teachers throughout the day so that they can support each other and collaborate with each other. We've never been able to do that before, so we really feel that this has been helpful for teachers to work together. And as I mentioned, the restructuring of study halls. We want to support our teachers always with anything new that we're doing. We know the block is a big change, so we're always offering professional learning opportunities. We send weekly articles each week. We do monthly coffee and conversations, and we ask teachers for what they're looking for. So it's not just kind of random coffee and conversations. It's what they're looking for, where they feel they may need support, and we get everyone together. We're working with a grant-funded educational specialist on doing engaging work in the block. As you all know, when students are engaged, they're less likely to kind of get distracted and do other things, so it's very important that we keep them engaged for the 90 minutes. We're increasing walkthroughs for instructional feedback. We always do the teacher evaluation and supervision. We continue to do that. And this year, at the beginning of the year, we had a calm verbal de-escalation training that all of our teachers attended to help de-escalate situations with students. So everyone had the same training and received the same message. And as always, we want to collaborate with our faculty and staff. We did restructure administrative roles a little bit. We now have all 3 APs working with different grade levels. We split the freshmen, and we each have our grade level, which really helps us get to know our students and follow through and work with teachers. We have monthly meetings with building reps. We had one today, and during that time we talked about how we continue to make sure that we're following through, getting back to teachers and communicating, and also checking back in to make sure that teachers feel supported. And we want to continue to increase our dialogue and discussion at faculty meetings and at our department meetings. Just this week we had a department meeting, and the deans made sure to ask the teachers how they were feeling, were they feeling supported, what they would like more support on in the upcoming weeks, and we take that feedback and try to plan professional development around it. So I also have Meg Wansi and Ben Morse here to talk about how they feel the year has been going.
Would you like to go?
Sure, I'll start. I think it's been a really positive start to the school year. I think especially with some of these changes that administration has made to, I think, streamline like how we do things. The pass system, I think, has been it's something that's so small, but it made a huge difference because now when students need to leave, they know exactly what to do in every single classroom. You know, they ask for permission, They sign on the sheet, they grab their pass, they go, they come back, they sign back in. And it's really nice not having to constantly remind students how, like, what your particular procedure is. So I would think for students as well, it's been really nice having that consistency. There's definitely, and I'm sure Ben can add to this as well, but there's definitely less traffic in the hallways, which has been really nice. It feels just like a really comfortable, positive environment right now, and that's been really great.
The hallways are a tremendous change, a tremendous change. There are just so many fewer kids, and if there is a student in the hallway, that person has a pass on them. I think the buy-in by all the teachers and the admin and all of the staff, and by staff I mean even special education, has made it a point for kids who have it on their IEP that they can take a walk as part of what they need to do to function. Those kids are always accompanied with an adult. If a student needs to see a counselor, I have seen admin not send the kid, but walkie-talkie down to see if the counselor is available, and if so, send the kid, and if not, they find a schedule for that kid to see the counselor later on. But there aren't kids in the hall without passes for any reason, and that has cut down the foot traffic tremendously, and what we see is one thing, but what the students see is another, and that changes the culture. They don't see anyone in the hall without a pass. They don't see another kid getting away with it, and then they think they can as well. And I think, while it might seem like a small thing, I think it really has changed the culture of our school very quickly in the first month. I'd say the same thing about hats, because hats isn't necessarily a huge issue, but they're just gone. They're gone. We don't see them anymore. I've seen 2 in this first month come in. They don't make it down the first hallway. They don't make it to where they're going with their hat on, and that's it. And so I feel like that changes the culture. They just know this is no longer part of what we do.
And to speak to some of the other aspects that have been changed, I think the common prep time has been really great this year. For myself, this is my 12th year at Timberlane, so it's not like it's new for me, but we do teach new classes sometimes, and it's been really helpful for me to kind of meet with some of the other teachers in core subjects that maybe I haven't taught in a few years to find out, what are you doing now with the new curriculum, because things have changed since I've taught a course. And it's been really great. Like, we've collaborated, come up with some really awesome, engaging activities for the students, great assessments that can measure how they're doing with those competencies. So that's been really nice. I've personally really enjoyed that, and I know others have too, just from discussions.
The other thing that I wanted to express is that every single person, I felt this way, and then I talked to a bunch of teachers just to make sure, they all said essentially the same thing. With only 4 classes in the day, there is less stress. There is less of a frantic pace of an 8 scheduled day plus lunch plus a study lunch. And so the kids have lower stress levels, the teachers have lower stress levels, and with the longer class periods, you have the time to get through what you need, but it also forces teachers to address student needs. If you've got a 45-minute class, you can lose some at the beginning and lose some at the end. You can have a half an hour or less to get through your lesson of the day, and you might be chomping at the bit to get through that. But with 90 minutes, you have to take into account what students are capable of doing. And I think that bridges a relationship. It makes a relationship with the students. Likewise, on the other side, you might be able to, as a student who's not interested in a particular class, they might be able to, try and disengage and, not for 30 minutes in the middle of it, but for 90 minutes, they have to buy in somewhere. And I feel like a lot of teachers are getting relationships with their students that's cutting down on the discipline issues that they have that require outside assistance.
And aside from that, it's been really positive. The no bells. I know we talked about that in our department meetings this week. What do you think about the no bell system? And I would say, almost like the majority of the English and art department loved it. When we talked about, they loved it. We all love it. It's kind of neat. Like, we weren't sure how it was going to work, and we were kind of all a little nervous about it. But it's funny. Like, everybody's out in the hallway. They usher kids along, and it's just like all of a sudden, poof, everyone's gone, and they're where they're supposed to be. And I think, one of the things we talked about is it mirrors the real world. We don't have a bell telling us where we have to go when we have to get there. It's so, for our students who are college bound, this is mirroring a college life for them. in those entering the workforce. This is mirroring what that is. So it's, again, I think it's any way we can start pulling in those real life applications, whether big or small, it's important.
My students don't run out when I'm like, don't forget to read page, and the bell rings and they run. They wait and they're like, Mr. Morse, can we go now? And I'm like, yes. It's a wonderful relationship.
Now, there are teachers that still look for the bell. And I know that in the morning, I set my alarm. So I'm used to, having some triggers. So there are teachers that are having a little bit of a harder time with that adjustment. I do think giving it time, they'll make those adjustments, and it won't be something that, they're concerned about. But that there are some new aspects to what we're doing. At this stage, it's early on, everything seems to be going in the right direction.
Good, thanks. Yeah.
You mentioned you had a grant-funded educational specialist that's helping with block scheduling. What sort of grant does that come in under?
I'm gonna have Christy answer that, because it's
It's the Title II Professional Development Grant.
Okay. Another question I have, and this is directed to Mr. Richmond, because you brought this issue to us as the president of the TTA, so I'd appreciate it if maybe you can come up here and speak to this. And I guess my question to you as the president of the TTA is this what your constituents were looking for? Is this sufficient? Do you feel there's more that needs to be done? How can the board, work? We want to work with all the factions involved to make sure that the TTA is receiving what it needs from everybody. So if you could speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that. And I appreciate both Megan and Dave's personal accounts. And Ms. Roy and I have been working together on this. In fact, much of what's on that slide came from a conversation that we had in her office. And thank you for also remembering that the TTA is, by law, the only organization that can speak for all teachers. So those are the accounts of these two individuals, and I think that they do represent a lot of what I've heard too. It is definitely a change this year already, and we'll see what happens long term, and that's been a conversation that Ms. Roy and I have had, is making sure that the efforts that are put in at the beginning hold steady, and that we don't fall off by October, November getting comfortable, and then we end up right back where we were before. I would say from my own experience this year, the Nobels is an interesting experience. I absolutely agree. It does represent what the real world is like. The students are very much in tune with their own personal time devices, and they know 3-4 minutes before they're supposed to leave the class that it's time, the time is near. So there's really no need for a bell because they're already letting us know. I will say the biggest, one of the struggles that I'm hearing from a number of AP teachers, and Ms. Roy and I have talked about this too, is the concern about every other day and the amount of work that has to be done on the off day in order to maintain the level of rigor for an AP class. And I think that, as Mr. Woodward said, is going to take some adjustment for those who have taught in the everyday model. But we will be running the survey again in the winter, and that will give us, again, district-wide, that'll give us a nice litmus as to where are we from May of last year, and be able to, hopefully, at the board's request, come back and deliver that information to you so that we can see where are the areas that are in need. I think a lot of this is a really good start, and I look forward to more work with administration on how we can address any issues that do come up and how we can modify anything that may not work in the long term and maintain what is working.
Right, so when would you do this survey, just so we can get you on the back burner?
Right, oh, absolutely. So we had, at my last board meeting, we had talked sometime after Thanksgiving and before midterms, so that and trying to schedule it to a time, most likely early January, so it's not the crunch of December, and also early enough that it's not the crunch of the end of semester.
So maybe late January would be appropriate to come back?
Probably early February to give us time to analyze if that works for you.
I do agree that the AP my daughter's taking 4 AP courses, and I can tell you that the workload on the homework, because of the way it's in every other day is it can be very challenging.
And I think that too is part of, if I may speak to that, as an AP teacher, and I think that is also an adjustment for the AP teachers of, we have an anticipation of, well, May is still May, whether or not we meet every day or not. And sort of that concern of making sure that we get through the content. And I think that some professional development in that area for AP teachers specifically. I know we're having an AP PLC next week, yes? I think that's what Rebecca Carlson had sent out. So hopefully some good ideas come from that for other AP teachers to give advice to each other on what's working in their classes.
Well, I'm very encouraged, because obviously there wasn't that long ago. People were sitting out the table and there was a concern, and so I appreciate from the top right down, obviously this issue was very quickly addressed at the high school, and it sounds like we're clearly heading down the right path, so that's very encouraging.
I met with the building reps this afternoon, and I don't know if they reported back to you yet, but we set an agenda for the year for checking in on a very regular basis with monthly meetings where they're bringing things with a couple of agenda items set, among discipline and communication. So we're going to get ongoing feedback. It's not a wait till January and see how we feel thing. We will have much more actionable information as we go, because I think we will be able to spot things as they happen if we're communicating well, and not have things back up on us and suddenly we have a crisis in morale. That was the tragedy of last year. We don't want to repeat it. I feel very good about working with Ryan. He's been very good about brainstorming solutions to problems as they've arisen, whether it's been scheduling or anything else. And as we make big changes, there are plenty of things to work through. So I look forward to continuing that relationship.
Great. Dan?
One thing, the study, so far, all the kids that I've talked to love it, that they're able to get specialized help in that study. Like, everybody that I've spoken to, that's the one good thing that they've said. They also like block scheduling. I haven't heard anybody say no yet. And Dawn, so far, because you've been doing this for a while, did you say the number of discipline actions that come to you are down?
It's so early.
I know, but
and everybody
I mean,
starts the year very well, just about every year. So I'm going to be the last one to give you that. I will say this has been a great start. I'm very encouraged. We know human nature. We know kids are going to find things that we haven't discovered that they've found yet, and we'll be paying attention. We got great cameras. I had a moat installed around. I've got some piranha there. They try to escape.
Good.
Hopefully they fall in, we catch them.
Whatever it takes.
Homeless alligators, I've heard.
We're doing everything we can within reason to corral behavior issues early on, and I'm sure that that's going to take some work. But collectively, we've talked about kind of a theme for the year: teamwork, working with the staff to try to solve those problems. So.
Very good. Thank you.
Donna?
Thank you. I have a few questions about the presentation. It says, under level 2, teacher and dean collaboration, it says, as one of the bullet points, refer to target team. What's the target team?
When we have a concern about a student that needs to have specialists from all that we have and all our resources, that's a referral process that can be made by a parent, can be made through special education or through regular education teachers or administration. Guidance counselors very often will collect data, then at the target team meeting, they'll workshop that case to see, is there anything we're missing, anything we can do? It's really just our way of surrounding an issue to support a student.
Okay, and at level 3, it says, after the parent conference, then it's a possible consult with a behaviorist. Is this an in-staff behaviorist?
Now, we have, we can, for regular education, special education, it's a little bit different. If I'm a special education person, there's money in the budget for paying a behaviorist who will suggest and build a plan around a student to help them with what we have determined is an aspect of their learning, their style, their behavior that needs to be addressed. And
They'll
we
do
could-
observations,
Right.
like several days, and then come up with a plan for
Right.
that team to use to help support that student
Right.
be more successful in the classroom.
And we can use that for regular ed too, but there's two ways to approach that, and, there's a significant cost to that. So that's a rare situation. That's something that, we're not anticipating many situations like that.
Okay. And there was something mentioned about the assistant principals being designated to grade levels now. So could
Right.
you expand on that, please?
Yeah, so last year, Mr. O'Connell and myself each had 2 grade levels. And we started to find that as things got busy, as we got pulled away into meetings, we weren't able to keep up always with the 2, it was about 600 kids a person, when it got to that level. And we were doing all the attendance as well, because we lost our attendance dean. So this year, we pulled our 3rd assistant principal in, who usually focuses primarily on academics, but now she has a grade level. So there's 3 of us, each with a grade level. And mine's kind of cool because I had this senior class when they were 8th graders. I was at the assistant principal at the middle school. So I've seen them, ask Brian, I've seen them kind of all grow up over the last 4 years. So I'm back with them, and you get to know your class, and you get to know, their strengths, their weaknesses. You get to know all about them. Now, they obviously intermingle with other grades, so we work together. I mean, the reality is all of us work together. But if you're having an issue with one student in your grade, then we typically, work with those students and those families. And the goal is to get to know them and get to know their families and follow them through so that you really know them well when they're seniors.
So the AP academics is that assistant principal doing both things now?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, to put you in like one lane and say you're only doing this. We really all do work together. It just helps us kind of take on some roles to make sure things are getting completed and, gives us some direction so that we're not all spinning our wheels trying to do the same thing, but gives us a little bit more focus.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
All righty. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Thanks for the update.
Thank you. Thanks.
Assessment report, AP scores. Who is going to present this? Christie?
And Mr. Patterson and Mr. Children.
Okay. I seem to have an extra one here. So, someone needs one.
Somebody need one?
I actually have 2 as well.
Okay.
Maybe we're supposed to read it in stereo.
Okay, okay.
Pull them both out.
They look the same to me. I thought they were,
Yeah, it looks like the same data set on the front page.
yeah. Second page is the same. No? Yeah. The same. Okay,
All right, ready to go?
please.
All right, Christine Michaud, Director of Data Assessment and Accountability. And this evening, Mr. Pedersen and Mr. Children from the high school, we are together presenting the Spring 2017 AP score reports. So we've started this evening with some highlights for you. The number of students taking AP exams, that increased this year by 18 students. So we were up to 172 students taking AP exams this year. That's a difference of 18, about 154 students the year previous. We've also had a 23% increase of the number of AP exams that were administered. So obviously that number looks different from the number that I just mentioned to you, and that's because we have several students who take more than one AP exam. We also saw a 48% increase in the number of students with qualifying scores. Qualifying score on an AP exam would be a score of 3 or better. We had 136 students with that qualifying score. And then the percentage of students scoring 3 or better on the AP exam, that was at 32, an increase of 32%. We had 79% of our students scoring 3 or better. Here's on the next slide here, we just show you some data over the last few years, from 2014 to 15, 16, and 17. On the next slide, we've illustrated for you a 4-year trend. This is specific to the numbers, so the total number of AP students in the orange bar, the number of AP exams administered in the gray, and then in the gold color there is the number of AP exams where students scored 3 or better. On the next slide, we have some percentages for you. This is the percentage of students scoring 3 or better, and this is that orange bar, and the blue or gray bar there is the percentage of our school population engaging in the AP courses and exams. On the next few slides, let you sort of just take a peek at these. What you'll see here are the subject that the student is participating in terms of the AP subject. You'll see the number of exams with qualifying scores. So just to kind of talk you through that first one. So studio art drawing portfolio would be the name of the subject. 6 out of 6 exams were qualified, and that would be a total percentage of 100% of students with qualifying scores. Few more subjects here on the next slide. And then on this slide here, you'll see that these were new AP courses. They were new to Timberlane High School 2015 and 16. So this was the second year of these particular courses. And then finally, we had one particular course that was new to us last year. It was an AP Human Geography course. And you'll see there 5 exams were administered, 3 with qualifying scores at 60%. You guys take it away there.
Okay. So again, just for some background information from previous years, all students who took the AP course took the associated exam. Unlike some other schools that maybe, cherry pick or hand select those kids, all of our students are taking the exam. TRSD did pay for the students' exams, and in every year we have done an audit of the AP course. So we look at the syllabi, we look at the alignment from what we're doing to what the AP board or the college board is saying. We offer and send our teachers for training or professional development. Sometimes it's a week in the summer, sometimes it's a weekend, sometimes it's webinars. We try to get the teachers that training that they need, and for some teachers they go repeatedly every couple of years, or they seek out those sort of professional development opportunities. The continual practice that we've been doing now for about 3 years, the academic deans will continue to work with each advanced placement teacher. We review and analyze score reports after they come out, so they come out about midsummer. Once the school year gets underway, we sit with each of those AP teachers and we go over their score reports and talk about the data that the AP board returns to us. There's instructional planning reports. We identify specific areas of attention and growth. We provide ongoing training, as I spoke to. We plan for that AP curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Like I said, we ensure that the curriculum is aligned to the AP standards. We talk about using varied instructional approaches so that all students can learn at high levels. And we use AP released items, test items, and grading rubrics in class with the students. I know many of the AP teachers are starting to model their tests, their individual, maybe unit tests or things like that after the AP exam. It's sort of a timed mini test, and they do the timing portion of it so the kids are used to that, taking a test in that certain time frame. As you heard earlier, there was the formation of an AP professional learning community, or a PLC. Our schedule really allows a lot of time to work with teachers and for teachers to work together. And as in the last presentation you heard, teachers in cross disciplines are able to work together, and usually AP teachers are singletons. Very rarely are there multiple people teaching it, so it's you kind of feel like you're on an island sometimes. So when one teacher who's teaching AP can work with another AP teacher and sort of talk about what is best practice in their class is really helpful. And so we've provided that time. I believe we're going to be meeting, or the AP PLC is going to be coming up in the next week or so, or don't hold me to that, but I know it's coming up relatively quickly. To review and analyze the assessment results. Like I said, the increased attention to curriculum, using released items, using those testing time ratios like I spoke to, really using what the AP board provides as far as grading guidelines for the free response questions and the document-based questions in the different subject areas. I think that was it.
Okay, Peter, we'll go right
Ladies
now.
first.
So I'm really encouraged to see the uptick in the scores and the percentage of students that are having qualified exams. And this is off the subject, it's more a statement than we don't want to get into a discussion about this now, but I'm still troubled by the numbers of students taking AP exams in the math and science field. I really feel there are a lot more students in our population that would be capable of taking these courses and getting passing scores. Just a statement, it's probably a philosophical discussion we don't want to enter into at this point, but I would really like to see more students encouraged to take these courses.
We'll go right down the line there, Peter.
Okay. I really want to congratulate you folks and the whole teaching staff on, doing what you've been doing to really bring these scores up, okay? So I did a little bit of my own research, which was easy. And, there's only one other high school in the area that has every AP student take the test. And I'm not going to name them for obvious reasons. But we had 79% of the students with 3 or better qualifying scores. The only other school in the area that had, made their kids take the test had like a 26%. Okay, I expect differences. Every school is different, but 3x difference, either our students are outstanding or you folks are outstanding or both, in my book, okay? And when I take a look at even the percentage of student population taking the APs, I was rather surprised to find that we were high, compared to other high schools in the area as well. I believe Pinkerton had a smaller percentage of students taking the APs, Salem, Londonderry. So anyhow, thank you very much. You guys have done a great work, and I anticipate similar results this year.
Mrs. Green.
Yeah, thank you. It is encouraging. In 2014, we had almost the same number of students taking the exams, but only 52% with qualifying score. And this year, we've got 79% with qualifying score. So that is really quite an achievement. So the one thing, though, in the reporting, I would like to see this put in the context of the state average and other contexts, so that we can you know, we can see what's happening statewide and where we place. Because as I recall, the state average was about 50% of the people who took APs qualified statewide. So, you know, has that changed, and, you know, how are we comparing with that? I'm sure it's excellent, but, you know, I would like these numbers put in context outside of our universe.
Sure.
Thank you. That's great.
Provide that for some follow-up information.
Yeah. thank
Dr.
you.
Metzler.
Yeah, to Mrs. Green's point, we considered that, but because other schools don't have all the students taking the AP exams that are actually in the AP courses, it's not a comparison. It means nothing.
Well, what I find useful when I'm looking at these is I look at it by subject, and I look at what the average score is on the test. For example, chem, the average test score is, you know, across the, on the exam itself is low. So when we're seeing that people are all getting, you know, 3s and 4s, it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
So and I know that's on the high school website, so I find that's an external comparison, and that's kind of what in addition to this, I look at how we're comparing by subject and by test, so.
That would be helpful to have as well.
It's on right on the high school
all
web, it's a
listed.
5-year report.
Yeah, it's been there since I've been here. We put it on 5 years ago.
Report card.
So,
Whole report card, all the data's there, right on the website for anybody that takes the time to find it.
well, we are having a report. It would be
Right.
helpful to
No,
have it on.
no, I-
the
The
I'm
the
not
report you have
disagreeing.
tonight, Mrs. Green, is exactly what Dr. Farah and Mr. Boyle asked me to present. It's exactly what they asked.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just
All right.
saying it can be improved.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's not.
Brian?
it's unlimited. Yes, sir.
On a, yeah, lighter note,
Yes, please.
I guess one of the things I think you guys didn't highlight, which I'd like you to speak on, is the way the report, the state, I guess, I'm not sure if it's state or the college board, reports the percentage numbers. It's not the number of tests, right? Not the number of tests that scored 79, 3 or higher. It's the number of students. So if a student takes multiple tests, and one of those, say takes 5 tests, good student, and one of those tests is above 3 or above, then that student is in the plus. They don't look at the number, so it's not a comparison of the number of tests taken versus the number of tests that scored 3 or higher. It's the number of students that took any number of tests versus students who got 3 or higher on any number. It's kind of a weird thing, and these folks don't have any control of that. This is the way it's reported out from College Board.
That's the way, College Board, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really odd measure.
and in any given year, that's either worked in our favor or not.
Right. I just want to, in case anybody out in TV land or whatever who, saw the presentation, it's like, well, who cares about the number of students, it's the number of tests. That isn't on us. We don't have that data. So, just pointing it out.
Good news is scores going in the right direction.
Yeah, the number of tests
That's easy-
internally
that's
was
easy to
still
say.
about the same, actually, for us.
One final point, to Dr. Farah's point about increasing enrollment in our, we've had this discussion, I've had vast experience in terms of a screening device that would identify students, like Dr. Farah said, that we think would be good candidates to take this, and that's the PSAT. So it is a discussion probably at the curriculum and assessment to think about another, to have all the students in a particular grade or two take the PSATs, and then we'd have an idea of which students we should be encouraging, because we encourage all students to reach, but there are students we know, and I agree with Dr. Farah, there are students in that school that are capable, and, how do we clearly have the data to identify which ones, other than teacher recommendations, which are great, but the PSAT, in my opinion, has been the most accurate screening device in my experience to identify students that should be taking these courses that are not. So, something to talk about in curriculum and assessment. So.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep up that good work.
Congratulations.
Nice job. SAU building lease.
Could I, if I could, Attorney Dowd's coming up?
Sure. Thanks.
So I'd asked Attorney Dowd to come up through some investigating based on some help from private citizens that had brought up about the SAU lease. Where's the SAU lease? And we looked at it, and Kathy found it for us, and we were able to determine that it had expired. And Jeff's going to kind of go into that in great detail about, after we found it, then we had a discussion about okay, a new lease, what would that look like? What's fair market value in terms of the price per square foot? And then what's fair in terms of what we charge Timberlane and Hampstead? So, working with Dr. Farah and Mr. Boyle, I asked Jeff to do some research on this, and that's what's in your packet tonight. That's kind of where that's at. We need a new lease because the lease we have is expired. What that lease would look like is a discussion we thought should happen here first before an SAU meeting, because this is a Timberlane building.
Okay.
That make sense? Okay.
That makes sense. I'm going to, obviously want to hear your presentation, then I have some, I guess, concerns or questions that are actually not even on the paper, so, but this would be a good time to, so please go ahead.
Okay, so Jeff Dowd, I'm the district CFO and business administrator, and you do have a lease agreement in front of you. This is really replicating what we had previously and rolled it forward. I do not serve as district counsel in this matter. I just want to make that clear. And so our current lease had expired 6/30/2016. We carry on with the same agreement, the arrangement, and the payment of lease terms as if the agreement had not expired. Taking a look at the agreement, I think it's always good to take a fresh look at, hey, how are we utilizing the building? How does that all work out? I believe you may have as your third page a lease agreement review that I put together, which may be informative on some matters, and it's a base place to start. And I don't want to take a lot of time, but well, if you look at the building, perhaps 2/3 of the building is office space, 1/3 of the building is meeting or visitor space, and you'll see that in the second section that says functional building space utilization. Of those two uses of office space and meeting and visitor area, how are we using those two spaces between the SAU and the school district? And if you look at the next line down, employees, the SAU with about 13.5 employees is 61%, Timberlane with 8.5 employees is at 39%. So really that would be representative of what that 2/3 use would be broken down by. So 61%, 39%. Meetings per year broke down what the SAU meetings were, what the Timberlane meetings were, and really it's about 9% versus 91%, 9% SAU, 91% Timberlane. So that 9% and 91% really is a breakdown of the 1/3. At the bottom, I've looked at a weighted utilization, if you will, where we're using, again, 2/3 of the space for employee use and 1/3 of the space for meeting space, coming up with a total SAU weighted usage of about 44% and about 56% on the Timberlane side. The lease agreement that we have in place, as Dr. Metzler correctly pointed out, addresses the use of the current building that we're in, 30 Greeno Road, that is owned by the Timberlane Regional School District, and speaks to us, the SAU as the tenant in that regard. Rent is fixed at $13 per square foot at what was deemed 50% utilization in the pre-existing lease agreement. Landlord managed the insurance on the general liability on the insurance, and maintenance and upkeep contributed to about 50%, probably to the tune of about $10,000 a year from SAU to Timberlane for that purpose. In terms of where we are at $13 per square foot in office space, really there aren't a lot of comparables, but I did include a couple just for consideration. A building and some space in Plastow, an office building, or space within an office building or complex, and some space at Stiles Road in Salem. So all around the same neck of the woods for our use as office space. So I don't know where the Timberlane board is, if you will, as landlord on the space. Would like to go on this having no lease in place right now. It would probably be a good idea to renew on some terms. I don't know what those terms would be. I put these out there for your consideration.
Well, first of all, nice job. Almost looks like a bank appraisal type thing. The comps, very nicely done. What's in front of us here tonight is a 5-year lease, and obviously we don't have to do anything on this evening. So as Dr. Metzler mentioned, myself and Dr. Farah had a brief conversation with the superintendent last week, and yes, we should obviously get into some kind of a contractual, get us back into a contractual arrangement. I personally have some concerns, not so much with this exact document, but just with our overall relationship going forward. And I grant that I'm one of 9, and I'm going to do my darndest to keep the conversation 99% Timberlane versus SAU 55, because we are the owners of this building. I know in the past, from what I've been told, that there's Hampstead's had some issues with their relations with before my time, before your time, with the arrangement. But I've been on the board since March, and a couple of things that have. I understand the legality of it. We're a 9-member board. Our sister town in Hampstead's a 5-member board. When you add them both together, 14 people meet 3 or 4 times a year and address at a high level the management concerns of the SAU 55. One thing that bothers me, and I've never brought this up in front of my fellow board members, I've mentioned in a few phone calls to my vice chair. I'm from Atkinson. Atkinson has 2 reps. Plastow has 3 reps. Sandown has 2 reps. Danville has 2 reps. When you go to these meetings, because they make up, Hampstead makes up their own school board, they have 5 reps. So conversations that involve the management of our school system, it just seems to me to be a little, no one in this room set this up. No one, so it just seems to be a little not fairly weighted. And I would like to have this conversation, that the building makes sense, obviously, that we both parties should operate out of the building. But I think it's worth exploring, because we have a SAU meeting, I believe, October 4th, as the SAU chair is here. So just to have general discussion here about, we're as Timberlane's working on a strategic plan, where we're going in the future. I'd like to hear some feedback from my Hampstead colleagues, how they view things. I don't think the 50-50 building, the rent, I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think that's been the deal for years, so I don't think that's really going to be the true issue.
It doesn't seem out of proportion.
Yeah, it doesn't seem out of proportion, and the rent seems right. I just look at, there's a lot of things I'd like to hear from my, first of all, from my fellow board members here, and then from my SAU fellow board members. Like, for example, I'm very happy with the staff we have. Our staff works on 1-year contracts. SAU staff works on multi-year contracts. There's little things I'd like to hear the rationale. So, I think it triggered my brain when I saw this, that maybe it's time to have a chat with our counterparts from our sister town of Hampstead. So, but your analysis is spot on. I think in terms of the dollar value, even though I think you're doing a good job for the town of Hampstead right now, so you're trying to lose a weighted average. Theoretically, some analysis might show you could have a cut for Hampstead. But if I read between the lines, you did a nice job about that. So, but I don't think I'm in here tonight to talk about 3% or something like that. So you did a nice job. So it's the percentage-wise, I think makes perfect sense. It's just that the 5-year term, and I realize we don't even have to even, because if you put your lawyer hat on for a minute, because obviously I would never do anything that would hurt Timberlane or SAU 55. So nothing has to happen here tonight, because, this is in front of us for the first time. So, and we would keep progressing. We'd stay in business collectively. So
We have for years.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm not. No one at home should be concerned about that. I just have questions, and I don't know if my fellow board members, I'll open up to, because I don't, like I said, I don't want to. We are the Timberlane School Board, and in my previous life, and I was a selectman in Atkinson. I guess I didn't 100% realize. I knew there was an SAU 55, but it's a different world how our schools run. We collectively serve our public here, and then we're partners with Hampstead on the overall management. So, anyhow, I don't know if anyone else has any comments they'd like to make, because again, I will just preface it because I want to make sure that we keep it to Timberlane, because I don't want to, I don't want to open the thing up to too much SAU type stuff. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, you have opened this up to SAU stuff, and you're speaking about another board, but they're not our board. And I think if you really want to go down this path, that.
We're going to our building.
Hold on a second. If you really want to go down this path, and even
Yep.
in discussing this, which is a possible contract, which was the topic for this discussion, not all these ancillary things, I think we really need to go into non-public.
No. No, there's no one reputation here. No one, I think that's another mistake people seem to make. They don't understand what non-public's all about, so.
And again, we're talking about a contract, in terms of a contract. We have every right to go into non-pub about that.
I have no idea why we're going to non-contract. I know, non-public. I have no idea why. No one's reputation is being tarnished. We're just having I'm just having general conversation here. So, that's your opinion. I'm not gonna call for non-public. Mrs. Green?
I concur. There's no need for non-public. In fact, I would like to make a motion that we approve the draft lease that's been put in front of us with the provision that it is for 1 year only for 1 year only.
Well, I don't think well, go ahead. I mean,
I'll second it for discussion, but I'd like to be the first to ask a question.
go ahead.
So I'm seconding the motion.
Yep.
My question, may I ask it to Mrs. Green, or do I need to go through you, Mr.?
Go ahead.
So, Donald, why 1 year? Well, we'll barely it'll be like this, and then we'll be back to this. 2 years? I mean, what's your motivation for 1 year? Want to be about 50-50 next year, or you think the numbers would change that much in a year?
Well, I think we need the flexibility. I think we need the flexibility for 1 year.
You think 1 year would
contract.
offer us flexibility?
Mhm.
I'm going to disagree, but, okay.
Okay.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Go ahead,
question?
Kelly.
When you say flexibility, can you elaborate?
No?
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just have a question for Jeff. Do you know why we didn't do this last year? Or why it says 2016 that it expired? And actually, you're pretty new, so, but do you have any opinion on that?
You know, I don't know, but
I mean, in your experience, wouldn't we have done this a few months before it expired?
you know, perhaps, but it's the type of arrangement that if the market conditions haven't changed and nothing's really changed with the use of the building or, you know, conditions in relation to that, it, you know, you would just go on as if it were still in force and effect. Certainly, I would fall back on this if anything were to happen, if there were a liability issue or anything like that. So I think it is good to have some, you know, some certainty as to the term of the lease. Now, to Mrs. Green's concern, there is, paragraph 8 speaks to a termination of 1 year's written notice.
Oh, yes, I meant to, that's right, I meant to change that as
I mean,
well.
effectively, it is a year lease. I mean, the
No.
longest, you have it in place for 5 years, but if you want to terminate early, provide notice.
No. Yeah, the term of this lease is 5 years, this is what it's saying. The financial terms of the agreement are open to review and reconsideration only at such time as the percentage use of the building, 50/50, changes whatsoever. The lease can be terminated only with 1 year's written notice of intent to claim total premises by the owner, or 1 year's written notice by the tenant of intent to vacate the premises. So it's not just that we can terminate with 1 year's notice, it's only with intent to claim total premises. So that termination clause has to be, has to be excised, because we don't need it.
You can't have that termination point in there.
We don't need it.
Well, it's useless at that point.
Well, we don't need it, so we would strike, yeah, thank you for pointing that out, we would have to strike that as well. And that makes a 1 year much cleaner, because that gives us far more flexibility, we don't have to say.
But we don't know
with
what
a
the
written-
flexibility's for.
With a 1 year written notice, we don't have to say we intend to claim the total premises.
Either either way, you've got a one-year notice, so you're
You
fine.
don't need it. You don't need it, though.
You have it, so that's for this kind of money, it's, if there was an issue, that the one-year notice clearly is, I think, covers us. So it's not technically a 5-year deal, you have a one-year notice.
No, but you have to give 1 year notice of intent to claim total premises.
Okay.
So,
We
no,
want it for ourselves.
Yeah.
we have to excise that clause if we want a 1 year contract.
That part's true, yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions, concerns here before I?
Brian, can I?
I'm sorry,
Just to
Doug.
answer Mr. Spiro, yeah, this should have been done in either the fall of 15 or the spring of 16. That's when it should have been done. I don't have an answer as to why it wasn't done. It was brought to our attention, again, like I said earlier this evening, a citizen picked up on it and got that information to us, which then we explored and found out. But that's when that should have been taken care of, either in the fall and at the very latest, at the reorganizational meeting in the spring of 2016, and it was not done.
And again, see, to me, I am, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not here to tarnishing anyone's reputation here. I'm here expressing my concern as an Atkinson rep that I just have general questions, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I look at, we are a board. We should have pretty much similar concerns, and then when we get to the senior level of management in our district, that's when we team up with another town to offset expenses. So that's why I was just looking for if there's any other feedback of concerns, how they feel. That's all.
I'd like to amend my motion to state that with the removal of section number 8 on the, so my motion is to approve the lease agreement for a 1 year term only, with removing of section 8, the termination clause.
You're amending, right, Dawn?
Yeah, that's my amendment.
So,
Second the amendment.
No.
Yeah.
there has to be a second.
It does need a second on the motion
I'll
to
second the
amend, yeah.
amendment.
Thank you.
Okay? You want to discuss that, or, see, again, before, if you want to know what your thoughts are on that, Kim, but see, to me is, it's a 5-year lease, if something ever happened, you have a 1 year termination, so.
No,
She's
you
proposing
don't.
a 1 year.
You're proposing a 1 year lease, so I'm just saying that, the way you're just, okay, you want to go down the road of it, just a 1 year lease?
I'd rather
Yeah.
go down the road of a 1 year lease.
Okay. Motion made and second. Any other conversation on this?
So we're voting the amendment?
The amendment first.
Amendment to strike that line.
Right. You're voting to amend, that's what you're, if everyone agrees to amend it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Mr. Dowd had his hand raised.
Sorry, Jeff.
I would ask, I know that the boards are quite busy during the summer and that sort of thing, and revisiting a lease every year has some benefits, especially if you're in a market of increasing per square foot rental amounts. It seems like it would take some time every year to address that lease on this board's part, perhaps on Hampstead's part, and the SAU board's part. Would a 1 year lease with an auto renewal of a year, absent some 60-day notice or something like that, would that be better? So at least it would keep the
That makes
lease
sense.
in effect for that time in the event that it doesn't make it on.
That makes, yeah,
Really up to the board. I throw it makes.
that makes sense to me. That's a good idea. So, yes, it does happen that, whether it's meetings or whatever, that, yes, a week, a month goes
Falls
by.
through the cracks.
And obviously, that's why we're here tonight, because technically, right now, that, whatever it means. you're technically-
I think from another perspective as well, on the 1 year termination, I don't, with the budget cycles that we have, which are obviously protracted and extended, I don't want to say anything, nothing gets done, without a year's notice around here. But really, if there were a change in use to this building, I would imagine that, for example, that would have some budgetary impacts. So either the Timberlane Regional School District would be okay not having the $42,000 in rental income, which has its own budget implications, or SAU would have some other arrangement that it would come to, perhaps for the same money or different money somewhere else. I'd be looking at this, that if we knew that there were going to be a use for the building, that was going to change it, it would probably be a year anyway.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
You know, what do you mean? So if something were to happen, you would know about it through some budgetary process.
I agree, but I don't see us subletting this. I don't see that happening.
That's a whole other, I can talk to you about it.
Yeah,
It gets messy.
I have my doubts that would even be a feasibility that you'd replace a tenant, or I don't see that happening.
But in any event, it would be a year out, I would typically guess. Food for thought, whatever works.
Okay,
Really is-
so, Ms. Belcher, what is the motion, what's on the floor here now?
The motion on the floor is a motion to amend the original motion to remove Section 8, the termination clause. It was seconded by Dr. Farah.
Okay. All those in favor of the amended motion, signify by saying aye.
Of the amendment.
Of the amendment, I'm sorry. Raising your hand. 5, again, opposed? 4. Okay. So now, Dan?
I'd like to make a motion to add auto renewal without termination of 60 days.
Second,
Okay, but there's already a motion on the floor.
Just
this is to amend it.
Just
To
amend it.
amend it.
Yeah, motion on the motion to amend the amendment.
Discussion? I'd like to make that 90 days.
You want to make it 90? I can make it 90 easy enough. Peter, you all right with 90?
Good.
All right.
Okay,
We'll go
what
90.
does that mean exactly? To,
Makes it more
because
flexible.
I
Right.
heard auto renewal,
If we don't tell them in 90 days' time that we don't want to renew this, it automatically renews for a year.
And you could set that up for a term. We have a one-year lease with a 4-year, no, just
That's
renew
not what
every
the
year.
motion is. This is what they call an evergreen contract.
Right.
No
Perfect.
offense.
so
I'm
I'm
sorry?
not at all clear.
Back this up again?
Yeah,
The contract is in place in perpetuity unless we choose to exercise our 90 days out.
Correct.
Okay, yep.
I'm not in favor of that, because as you said, what if all of a sudden rates go up and instead of $13 a square foot, we should be getting $23 a square foot, and we're not used to looking at this on an annual or every other year basis, and it just keeps, for instance, here's an example. Our town has a lease for a building for $1 a year that's been in place for since 1972 that people weren't aware of. I think we could probably get more than $1 a year now.
Is
So-
that for a private use? Is it a public use? I'm just curious.
It's public.
It's public, oh, it's for a public use, okay, okay.
But it's something that didn't get looked at, and actually now it can be, sometimes what happens then, it gets to be a question of ownership, you know? I didn't even know that this whole thing existed, this relationship
town.
existed, because I wasn't familiar with the lease. So
Okay.
that is my concern about an
So,
auto renewal in
Kelly?
perpetuity.
Just for clarification, if Timberlane was to raise the rates to the SAU, and the people who live in the district are paying the taxes and paying the SAU to pay Timberlane, isn't that kind of, we're still all paying the money, right? I don't think it really matters.
Well, no, because Hampstead pays Timberlane for the lease, so,
You'd get a small portion of that, you'd get 40-something% of that money coming in from Hampstead. Right?
Less than that.
Less than that? Okay. So,
but it's
Our-
coming
our
from
towns.
Hampstead to Timberlane. So it's not our taxpayers, it's Hampstead's taxpayers.
that small portion of it is, yeah.
It is, but
I just said clarification, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, so, this is, it's a 1-year lease.
no, we're voting on the amendment to the amendment.
Right, and we don't have did someone second that?
Peter did.
Thank
Yes.
you.
so what is the amendment again?
The amendment is to amend the amended motion by adding an auto renewal clause with a 90-day notification stipulation, seconded by Mr. Bureau. Yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
and this, so during that 90-day period, it's up to Timberlane to act.
That's it.
And I would assume that's April, May, and June.
Well, we should.
Whatever
we
the date
should
of this-
specify this.
Well, you would,
Placed by July
July
1st.
to the end of June, right?
Yeah, it's July
Yeah.
1st. It's a
90 days after the thing.
school year.
So it'd be right after the election, and you'd have your reorganizational meeting, and that would be where you would address it, right?
If you wanted to, right?
If you wanted to, but that's,
Right.
well, that would be in the 90-day window.
But we have to give them an option of opting out too at that point as well. It's not
We took
just
that away, so.
one-sided.
Well, to me, it's to me, this is a draft, and we have a meeting, you know, I don't, no one's, nothing's getting signed here tonight. So.
Right, because the
The main
SAU would have to
motion is
decide on it.
accept it.
Right.
To have it for 1 year.
Right. So, you know, you have this is a draft that will obviously is, agree with the superintendent there that was brought to this board first, so we can hash it out a little bit, then we,
Okay, but my point is, if we approve the amendment, we're gonna have to put in an exit clause for Hampstead.
No, you don't.
Yeah, because right now it just says 90-day notice on our part. So, they don't have an exit clause in this
They don't
contract.
have to.
That's
We-
because
we
they're
own the
they're
building.
part of the SAU tenant.
To the tenant.
Hampstead
I know,
is part of
but it says
SAU.
it
It's part of
automatically
SAU.
renews. You can't impose an automatic renewal on somebody without giving them an opportunity to,
well, again,
would you
The
like to?
tenant,
You took
The
that.
tenant is both districts. It's
Right.
not just Hampstead. I
Correct.
don't think you get it.
right,
They don't need an out. The whole SAU would be getting out. Both districts would be getting out of this building, and they would have to relocate.
correct.
They don't need an out. The group together is a tenant. You are the owner of the building, two separate concepts.
Correct.
And this would be proposed to the SAU. No, we
exactly,
wouldn't force
as
Correct.
anybody
where the
to-
landlord
We would
would
say,
draw
this is
up
what we have
this
to offer.
and say, here.
Do you accept it?
There you go. We're all we're voting on. Oh, Jeff?
It's a mutual termination right now, right? Either landlord or tenant give that notice, that 1-year notice.
When you notice.
No, we just took
We just
that
took it
away.
out.
We took that away.
It was,
Number
but he's
eight.
talking about currently as it was,
if we-
currently as exists.
If we had if you had 90-day notice, would that be landlord and tenant, or?
Well, that was my point.
Yeah,
That's not what's on the table.
no, I understand that.
That's not.
And,
That was the
and
question.
that's a problem. That's what I'm stating, it's a problem. The current amendment is not suitable.
I think we should, I'd like to call the question on the proposed amendment to the amendment.
No,
It is.
it's an amendment on the amended
Right.
motion.
On the amended motion.
Right.
And the
We don't do amendments on amendments.
and the question is, Mrs. Belcher, please.
The motion was to amend the motion, which was, the motion is to amend it to a, oh gosh, if we back all the way up. I'm not exactly sure the logistics of that. Let me start with, Dan made the motion to amend the amended motion by adding our non-renewal, auto renewal clause with a 90-day notification stipulation. And that's on the amendment that is to amend the original motion for a 1-year lease and removing section 8, the term clause, the termination clause section. Are you following?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
following.
Okay,
I
good.
got you.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
All those in favor? Opposed? 7-4, 2 against.
Did you? I got
No.
6. I got 6 and
6,
4.
4.
6 and 3.
3 against.
Wait a minute.
And the
All
3
all those
are-
in favor, please, again.
3 are Donna,
1,
Stephanie,
2,
and Kim.
3, 4, 5, 6, right. And the 3 were,
Donna, Stephanie, and Kim.
thank you. Thanks. So now you have an amended motion. And the amended motion on the floor now is to approve a 1-year lease, removing this section 8 termination clause, and adding an auto renewal clause with a 90-day stipulation. That's your new motion.
Okay.
Can you be more specific about a 90-day stipulation?
she just said, it's the 90-day
This is the window
termination. I mean,
termination. It's
Notice by Timberlane. It's not mutual, it's not bidirectional.
I can correct that.
That's it, that's a key element,
Yeah.
correct?
I would say.
Yeah. Well, Timberlane being a landlord, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so your motion as amended, you have a new motion as amended.
All those in favor of the amended motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. 8-4, 1 against. Am I adding that right?
Did Mrs. Green oppose or
She,
abstain?
she, so,
Oh, I missed it then.
Peter was against, correct?
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Very good.
And just so I'm clear, I anticipate that this would be something to be presented to the SAU?
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be on the SAU agenda on
Yes.
October 4th.
So if you could clean that up, please,
Not a problem.
that'd be great. Thank you very much. CIP project schedule, Mrs. Sherman.
Can I go sit down with Jeff? Is that all
You-
right with you?
Absolutely.
This book's getting
that's like a
heavier and
George
heavier.
binder.
Yeah.
It is. That is. It's a nice book.
Pages slowly.
Nice book. Wow, that is quite a book.
Good evening from the CIP Committee. We are not doing a slideshow this year, but what you have in your packet are some materials for you to look over. I'll just refresh your mind about the purpose of the CIP Committee. You'll remember we formed a permanent school board committee back in 15-16, worked pretty hard over quite a bit of time, and created the first year, 16-17, which we are currently in, right? CIP. And the unique composition of this particular committee needs to be noted, that we have, we work collaboratively together with 4 school board members, 1 from each community, 4 volunteers from the community who have been a wealth of process ideas and information from their experience working with CIPs. And I wanted to thank Kim Farr for being originally our Danville rep, now she's serving as a school board rep. Sean O'Neill, Cindy Bucco from Sandown, Jim Paul from Atkinson, and John Sherman from Plastow. Hugely respectfully thanking them for the work they've done. 2 members of the Timberlane Budget Committee sit with us, and 3 from what I call SLT or administration that sit with us. So it's a very unique combination of people and, of course, experiences. So to show you what you've got in your packet, remembering that a CIP is that forecasting our capital needs over a 6-year period, hopefully to have a balance as we go along. What you've got in your packet, I'll go through it, is the 1 year 18-19 document that shows the projects listed, and attached to that is what I call the executive summary pages, which briefly gives you a couple of bullet points on each of the projects or requests that have been requested to be in the 18-19 year, so that's stapled together. And then a 6-year larger document stapled together for you, and you can see out in the column where it says years 2 through 6, we haven't, of course, vetted those. We just focus on the year that we've got in front of us. And then the final piece of documentation is the, what I call the process document. It gives the whys and what fors. It talks about our process. It talks about the annual preparation. It talks about our committee goals. It's quite a nice document, I think. And it lists the members on the back, which have to be changed every year as people revolve in and out. So, with that stated, speaking of the process document, I wanted Jeff to speak about the process, how it went this year compared
Excellent.
to last year.
I'm happy to do so. The process, so this is our second year working through this plan, worked out a lot of the issues that we may have had in terms of getting a better process in place last year, carried those forward to this year. Some of the features of this year's process are, and I think the process was better overall, We had requests in earlier. We had our requests come in a better articulated way, and we had requests come in with knowledge that we'd be looking for a focus on student impact and how this helps our district move forward with academic achievement and all of the goals that we have, in addition to any of the other needs that we may have outside of that. Again, the process was better this year than last. I think the process will be better next year than this year. Our CIP, process, I don't think is necessarily perfect per se, and I think as we move along, we just get better at doing things. The earlier requests this year helped us out a lot because we were able to meet as a committee, look where we were last year, what was approved, what was deferred, what worked, what didn't work. We were able to take that and use that as a basis for generating this year's year one request and to look at year one in the context of all the rest of the years. We also, I'd like to point out, really, I think the committee did look at any requests that came in with a focus and with deference to any long-range planning and long-range projects that might be out there. So if it didn't make sense to propose some work that may be beneficial to the district because there is a thought that, well, it may be worked over or maybe built over or perhaps dismantled in a few years, it was something that really did not really meet our did not rate very, very highly with the committee. It was a factor we looked at. So we'll be looking for two things from the committee tonight, really to take a look at the plan as proposed. You'll see the one-year plan. And which one?
What's stapled on here is not, what I've received is not what it is. This is the, this is what.
It's the 1 year?
It isn't the 1 year, it's the. Oh, sorry, never mind, I had a little brain cramp there. I've been looking at these numbers for a long time now, so I'm sorry.
That's good. So we,
Just wind the tape back, Dean, and, so what we're looking for here,
He's numbering it now.
tonight, I know, is the school board, what we did last year was, we asked you to accept the report, and accept the process document, and then we'll pass on this information, to the budget committee. They've asked for it much earlier, they'd like it tomorrow, so that they can have a week to look at it. And they want all of this documentation, remember this is the big book that keeps every single request with a lot of information and pictures and drawings and et cetera for each of the projects. They want all of that too, and I'm thrilled that they want that. Last year, they were a little not sure what they wanted. This year, they're sure they want it a week ahead to their members. They want it tomorrow. They want all the documentation. So Jeff and I stay up all night and do that, right?
I think having our requests in earlier allowed us to go through our process earlier, and it allowed us to go through the summer really and take a fresh look in the fall. You can see on our 6-year plan, years 2 through 6 not vetted really until there's more solid. I think a year from now we'll have more solid information, or 6 months from now we'll have more solid information as to any long-term or long-range or large-scale projects the district's looking to undertake. Those projects really have been looked at, have not been put into the first year's request, but have been put out into subsequent years pending further direction from this board, really, and from the other boards.
And we talked a long time about strategic planning and how that all melds together, because eventually it all comes together. Further, I think, probably beginning next year and into the 4th year. So I'm hoping for, I'll answer questions if I can, Mr. Boyle, but I was hoping for an acceptance of the report and the work that the CIP committee did. They have finished their work as of September 13th. They have frozen the CIP. You see the number there, and their work is done, so.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Go ahead, Kim.
So I appreciate all the work you've done as chair and Jeff getting this very well organized. I do think that before this board takes this document and sends it to the budget committee, that this board needs to take a look at this. I'm on the CIP and I'm a little confused here because, well, the first question I have is, what's the difference here between this sheet of paper and what I have as a cover sheet for the CIP?
I don't know what that other piece of paper is. What piece of paper?
I have it's Timberlane Regional School District Facilities related
says
requests?
Facilities. I think these are specifically facilities, and these include technology. I think this is the whole thing.
That other document you have in your right hand is not coming from the CIP. It's not from our committee. What I've given you
Okay,
and alluded
okay,
to.
well, I'll ignore that other
Thank you,
document.
I'd appreciate
I'll ignore
that.
the other document then. My concern here, and I know I missed the last CIP meeting, but I don't think I've missed one here in a long time, is that in this, there's $268,000 to construct an administrative office and conference room in Courtyard One. I thought from our previous discussions that we were gonna take a holistic look at the middle and high school campuses before we did any major renovations, so that we would not be bringing in people to look at utilization piecemeal and potentially spending money on something that is unwarranted if we look at the entire campus. So I'm a little confused as to why that $268,000 is in there.
I can go back and look through the minutes if you want me to, Kim, but that was the one project that seemed to flow along through. We did put a lot of those other ones over a couple of years, but that's the one project that has stayed throughout. So when we got to it on the 13th, on September 13th, we got to that. I said, I guess we didn't move this one over. We didn't, I don't think we chose to move it over, we left it there.
Well, I'm certainly not in favor of approving this to move forward to Budget Committee with that number in there. I just totally disagree with that.
Well, okay, maybe I'm confused with the process here. Why can't the report be accepted, move it to Budget Committee, and we, as a board, can still prioritize stuff?
But
That's what I would do, I think, Kim. I'm not
I mean,
trying to
we're
tell
not,
you.
I guess my, if I understand being asked here, you're being asked to accept the report versus being asked to accept, we're recommending $1.9 million improvements.
That's not what I asked you to do. I asked you to accept the
Right.
report, so I can move the report onto the Budget Committee.
Like last year, I think we pulled tennis courts out just
Not-
before,
Yep.
you know,
right.
after everybody had seen it, we
Afterwards,
pulled it out,
started
you know?
talking about it. You've just been given this document. No offense, but I know Donna's familiar with what it is. I know I am. I know Greg is. I know you are. But is that fair to Peter? You're gonna ask him to vote to take that out? He doesn't even know. He hasn't even spoken to the stakeholder.
I was not asking for a vote. I'm just saying, I do not agree with this. Let's say we send this forward to the Budget Committee as is, okay? And we, as a school board, are going to have the superintendent present the budget to the Budget Committee, what we want our budget to be to the Budget Committee. We have almost $2 million that we're just handing to the Budget Committee without looking at it, without saying, yes, we're all set with this. So say this goes to the Budget Committee,
As
then it
is.
comes back to us. I'm gonna say this in 2 months. I'm not in agreement with this. So why wouldn't we look at it now before the Budget Committee spends time grappling with this? If this board, and I'm not saying tonight, if this board is not in agreement with what's in this first year, and I'm not saying we as the board without any input, I certainly want to hear from the SLT and the head of facilities and the CFO as to what their feelings are here. Now, there was an enormous amount of work put into this in the last couple of years, but we've also had an enormous change in the senior leadership here that may definitely have different priorities than, and this is not disparaging at all, the previous CFO and the previous facilities manager. So we're in a big state of flux here, and I think that this board needs to be taking a look at it. I'm fine with you sending it to budget, but I think this board is ultimately gonna have to make some decisions based on input from SLT as to what the priorities are for the budget, because typically, at least from my understanding, is facilities run about 1.2 million in the annual operating budget. Right here, we have 1.9 million.
But it isn't all facilities. You have,
Tech.
you have tech projects in here. It isn't all facilities, so it's not 1.9 of facility construction. It's 1.9 with playgrounds, with business technology, and facilities, if you wanna call it.
Well, true, but if I knock out, and I'm just doing this kind of in my head, even if I knock that out, we're still well over 1.9 1.2 million.
And that doesn't include the operating costs that are built into those other budget lines.
Yeah, that's
Typically
not part of the
run for
CIP.
That you're talking about.
That 1.2 million.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
talking about less than 1.2 million that comes in from the CIP into that portion of the budget.
Well, again, I think this is semantics, that you agree that basically that the document should be forwarded to the, obviously, they're gonna, I think they're starting next week, the Budget Committee.
That's right, they're having a meeting with the.
So,
That's what we're doing, is just approving the document.
But
Well, no, we're
I'm
we're
not
accepting
approved.
it.
Accepting,
the report from
accepting
that
what's
committee.
presented from CIP.
Mrs. Green.
I'm in total agreement with Dr. Farah. There, this work was done specifically for our review. And we should review it before we pass it on.
How long will you need? 4 meetings, 5 meetings, and not get it to the budget committee in a timely way? They're gonna start to listen to
What's-
the stakeholders,
Well,
so.
what's the point of giving it to the budget committee when it's just a wish list? We all have acknowledged it's a wish list.
The Budget Committee wanted it before they started having their meetings with each individual town, each individual school, so they can talk to them about what's on this list, specifically.
Okay, they can talk to them about the list once we've whittled it down.
But October 12th is when they're,
That's not what the CIP is, Donna,
We
you
don't
know
whittle
that.
down someone's list of stuff they want
Oh,
or
yeah.
need.
Oh, yes, we
No,
do.
no, no,
This
no.
is a wish list.
Oh, man.
This is a wish list, and that has been stated at the CIP committee.
But we can't whittle down
Not
what
by
they
the
wish to
chairman.
have.
If not us, then who?
No, we can whittle down what we give them.
That's our job.
We whittle down what we give them. We don't whittle down what they wish for.
No, right.
That's what I just said, and you
No,
said I
no,
was wrong.
I'm sorry, we do whittle down what they wish for. When my daughter says she wishes for 20 things for Christmas, I whittle it down.
She might still wish for it. You might not give it to her, but she still wishes for
No,
it.
but,
Okay,
but,
then I guess you operate differently. That's
Okay.
fine. I don't want to get into semantics,
no,
but we can't change what they want or need for their stuff.
we can,
They can ask for it, and if they go to the budget committee and they ask for all this stuff, and the budget committee says, you can't have this and that, and we say absolutely not on this, then that's how it should be.
no,
We
but,
can't say, you can't wish for that.
but the point is that it comes to us before it goes to the budget committee.
It did. They want to look at it as well.
Well,
They wanna look at the whole list
Wait a
as
minute.
well.
Mrs.
I
Doobie.
think, thank you. I think that there is the possibility of there being an implied recommendation from the school board to the budget committee, having given them this document. So I think that's the concern. I'm concerned about that. I certainly wouldn't want this wish list to be just submitted. Here you go, this is what everybody wants, here you go. I think that we do need to look at it. I mean, if not, I think it needs to be done sooner rather than later, and I'm not taking anything away from these requests. I think that they're, I'm sure that the majority of them are legitimate requests and, there's documentation to back it up. But I think, $1.9 million, we definitely have to look at it. And I think we as a board, we don't necessarily want to just give this over to the budget committee and go, here you go. Here, have at it with, because I do think that there is an implied recommendation from us as the school board. So that's a concern of mine.
Peter?
May I ask Dan a question?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I've been listening to Sue too much. Dan, as a school board rep to the budget committee.
Yep.
Do you feel that you can convey to them that that the CIP, that they, if we,
This is not a recommendation
this is not a
from the school
recommendation,
board.
and that we're gonna be looking at this, and this is the, work done by the CIP and the requests from the, whoever, stakeholders.
Stakeholders. Yep.
Can you make them aware of that?
Yep.
Okay, then I'm good with that.
Okay. That this is not a school board approval.
Right.
Second. So I had a brief conversation with Mrs. Sherman over the phone a couple of days ago, and I assured her, because, see, I look at this, there's approximately 35 items here. If it was if it was my intent, put it that way, it was my intent to go through these things one at a time and say yay or nay, I would have had Mrs. Sherman set aside 3 hours. I don't, you've got 35 items here. I don't know how we can go through because obviously it's not up to Sue Sherman, obviously she's the honcho that did all, oversaw the work here. The questions are gonna rise, there's no question in my mind, over the next 60 to 90 days that are gonna involve the people who are behind the request. So, I agree with Kim. I mean, there's no way, I'm not gonna, and I don't think, as was brought up at the last CIP meeting, I believe, because I was sitting there and, just in the dugout, so to speak, and I think everyone in the room agreed that no one expects a $1.9 million recommendation from anybody, not everybody, that there's no way that any board is gonna recommend all these go forward to the voters. We do, I agree with Kim, I believe part of our job is to prioritize what we feel
Absolutely.
should be happening here. I don't think we're capable of doing this all this evening. So I don't want to, I'm sure that Dan Guide is capable of talking to the Budget Committee that what our action is, because I don't, Stephanie brings up a good point. We don't want to just sit back and have it, okay, we're sending it over there, we've accepted it. We don't want it implied or suggested that we're blessed it.
I don't feel it was last year, so.
Yeah, well, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know or care about last year, quite honestly, but it's, I'm more concerned about just, moving the process forward, but I do know it's up to this board to weigh in on this during this budget season. So, and it's gonna be a timely type thing, and I'm sure, so if people, I saw a portion of this last week, so I know that there are different people in the room just seeing it for the first time.
The Budget Committee meets next week.
And they wanted it a week ahead, so they could do some studying, because they won't have seen it.
Well, and I appreciate that they're going to do that. And so if we are gonna send this forward to them, my thought is that we do that with the understanding that we have not yet vetted it, because some of our members, obviously, who are not on the CIP, haven't been listening to this. And then it comes back to our next meeting, and we start to have a discussion and pare this down.
Well, and that would give you a couple of weeks to look at it yourself. So there'd be, this is what the CIP committee sent along. This is what the board, after numbers of studies or discussions or stakeholders coming in, are suggesting to the budget committee. The budget committee's gonna do the same thing, aren't they?
I hope so.
They're gonna look at the
I hope so.
request stakeholder by stakeholder, sure. And then hopefully we can mesh together.
Yeah.
I want this and they want that, can we compromise on what the budget's gonna be, right?
Mhm.
Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I'm also thinking too that we need to have joint meeting with the Budget Committee. So if both of us and the Budget Committee has seen this, then we can have a joint discussion about this. Because this is one of the numbers that can be subject to quite a bit of change as opposed to certain things that are
Sure.
contractually obligated. So,
Absolutely.
while this is
Absolutely.
a relatively small number, this is actually one of the bigger numbers that can fluctuate within the total operating budget.
True. Peter?
Motion on the floor, it's been seconded.
Okay. I'm sorry, one second.
Thank you. Yeah, the discussion isn't over yet. Thank you. So the CIP process is very valuable because it gets all of the pent-up demand out on the table. And that in itself has been a very valuable exercise. And the CIP committee spent a lot of time organizing the pent-up demand into things that they felt needed to be addressed more immediately and then in later years. So there was, just because we want to now pare down the requests in year one that we're looking at for 18-19, does in no way diminish the amount of work and the value of the work that was put into this. But the Budget Committee has 4 meetings, possibly 5. And in those 4 meetings, they're going to meet with each department head every principal, and on and on and on. The budget committee literally does not have time to go through this item by item and par it down. And we have a very good grasp of what these items are. Certainly the four of us who have been on the CIP committee, and Mr. Boyle's even been sitting in. So there are at least 5 of us who have an excellent grasp of what these are, far superior to the grasp that the budget committee is going to have. We should start by giving this a thorough vetting. And it's meaningless to say that we approved the package or whatever it is. That's meaningless. And it does come with an implied approval. So I think it's important that if they want to look at it now, there's nothing stopping them from looking at it now. Go to it. But I don't think that we should be giving implied consent to this before we actually put some brain power on it.
We wouldn't be.
Just, if I could, I think maybe one way to just kind of move the ball forward here, would it be possible to just add the verbiage, not vetted by the school board, on this document prior to giving it to the budget committee? That way, we can, we can still look at this at some point as a school board. When it gets to the budget committee, they'll see that we haven't looked through this, in greater detail. I think it might make sense to do that. Similar to this here.
I guess I would say you have a member from this board on the budget committee. You also have 2 budget committee members who sat on the CIP. So they have a grasp of what's going on, those budget committee members.
Yep.
And I think Danny can pass that message on, Steph. I agree. I hear, he can say, want you to know, they want to do a little more work on this. But we promised, I promised for us that they'd have this documentation so they could study it much better than they could last year. And I want them to have all the documents that they want and need.
I agree.
They wanted it a week ahead.
Listen, I don't have
And
any.
they did plan an extra meeting. But they've added a meeting especially to get the delivery of this documentation.
I think having the verbiage, though, I think that it would alleviate concern for that implied recommendation. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, I'm not seeing this as a recommendation.
No.
I'm just looking at this thing as,
Approval of document.
there's a CIP report that was prepared that we're accepting.
Yeah, for review.
For review. And I'm not, and now you have minutes of the meeting, so I don't see the confusion that anyone, because there's no way I see anybody on the school board or the school budget committee recommending everything on this. There's no way. I don't see it.
But I think they should see it, the whole.
No, I think they should see it, but I hear the concerns, but
I think you should put draft across it, and then when we have a joint meeting, that's the point, because then we can discuss it all as the 2 boards.
This is what the CIP committee voted to move to you guys. So it's not a draft from the CIP. It is their final frozen report.
Okay, so
You see
draft
what I
is the
mean?
wrong, so
But-
then I agree with Stephanie about
But
not.
you want something on the bottom that says.
Not vetted by school board, exactly like
Accepted
this.
by school board on,
Or
accepted as a report on, what's tonight, September,
No,
blah,
would
blah,
have to
blah,
be some-
but not vetted.
something like that. Well, yeah, something like that. To me, it's just, I don't see this as, here's what's confusing me, to my fellow board members, is that this document, it's only going from the school board to the budget committee. It's not like going out in the general public for distribution for comment. So I don't,
Oh, it is now,
well,
because it's public now, but
well,
yes,
but-
I
but
understand what you're
yeah.
saying.
So
Well,
it,
But my point is, I guess I'm thinking as a former selectman, is that once it comes from the board to the budget committee, that in my mind means the board has already looked at it. That's the way it works.
Comes back
as
around.
Selectmen, even though, so that's where I have my concern about it.
But
Is
see-
there's an implication there.
but I'm not looking at this like as if you put your old selectman's hat on, like you get, the police department has sent their budget to the selectmen, and that went to the budget committee. This is a CIP committee that is.
Gathered
that
information.
They've done the work, and they're saying, okay, this is what we came up with for year number 1. Now, we clearly are gonna vet it, and the budget committee will vet it. So, I think I think it's semantics myself. Mr. Belo, I have a funny feeling what the question's gonna be.
What?
Let me take a stab at it.
I'm gonna say.
Call the question.
Yeah, okay, move the question, let's move the
Okay.
question.
Karnak here, you know.
But I had my hand up before.
Okay.
So does Jeff.
So why do we even have to approve anything? Like, I don't even see the need to approve anything. A document came to us from the CIP, here it is. Go to the budget committee. What are we doing anything about it for?
Accepting it.
We don't need to accept anything. That's
Yes,
a
we do.
false step. We don't need to do it, and it's misleading. It's
not
misleading.
Any other subcommittee of the school board has to bring their stuff before the school board, and the school board has to accept that report, whether it's facilities or.
Action
We
plans.
We never do that.
Yes, we do. We
We
do it
do
all the
not do
time.
that. We do not do that.
Okay.
So,
Jeff?
and with all, due respect to the opinions that are out there, I am an order guy. I do like order to things, and really, this is a list. That's all it is. And it's exceptionally helpful to have one list. And not everyone's gonna agree on everything. I think it would be probably not a great idea to suggest that the budget committee is gonna wholesale put everything on this list into the budget. It's not gonna happen. However, I think there's gonna be a fruitful discussion on a lot of these issues and a lot of these recommendations between now and the time that the budget's finalized, between the budget committee and stakeholders, between this board and stakeholders. And let's just have that, let's just agree that we have a list that we can all go by, that we can all look at. Because what I'm a little concerned about is that if it goes out now, or you reserve it now, or you want to move things around or take things off, let's say you even did it tonight, that wouldn't restrict you from being able to do that at a later point and say, hey, you know what, we took a look at this a little bit more. We don't agree with X, Y, Z. And that can happen in a month, 2 months.
That's
So-
usually how it does happen.
Yeah,
Done it.
exactly. So here we've just got one list, and this may go to the budget committee, and the school board may say, well, we don't agree with this request, and the budget committee says, we don't agree with that request either, but you know what? We have one list to look at, and that's it, everything that's on here,
Right.
and that's it.
Right.
We have a request ID to refer to, that's why I say I'm an order guy. I don't think they're accepting this wholesale. I really think that it is much more an issue. Let's just have one list, one thing to look at, that we can all refer to, and everyone may agree something doesn't belong in a budget. But we've still got that one, there's no debate of, oh, is that on your list, is that on my list?
See if I can
One
close this
list.
thing up, so, because there's no question, we're going to be, whether it's next meeting or the following meeting. In the next 2 meetings, this board's gonna vet this list. When that happens, that revised list will be sent over to budget.
Well, your recommendation.
A
or
recommendation,
board's
sure.
recommendations to the budget committee regarding the list.
But we
I'm
have-
not saying there's 7 different lists going on. I think that's part of Jeff's concerns. And one of our other process guys who's not with us tonight, who's a resident of Plastow, would say the same thing. Don't start having 4 or 5 different documents. You can't keep track of it.
Let's have one, and if we
One.
add a column, it says, school board
It says
recommended, our
recommended by CIP, recommended by school board, recommended by budget committee, maybe columnize it.
And I'm thinking it maybe in a more of a broad sense that this would go through, and specifically, the school board does not endorse this, and this.
Well,
Right.
I'm thinking.
And that's what would go over to the budget.
Here's what I'm thinking here, we just spent 20, 30 minutes on that, so basically, anyone who doesn't know that this isn't vetted, basically isn't paying attention. So, it's, I think there was a, what is the motion that was on the floor, Mrs. Belcher?
Mr. Belo, motion to accept the CIP report as presented. It was seconded by Mr. Guy.
Okay. Call the question. All those in favor of the motion? please, you know. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
What was the vote?
This is 8-1.
8-1.
I voted, yeah.
Yeah.
And in favor of.
In favor.
Yes, I hope you voted, so, yeah.
Before we close out this subject, could I just, it sounds like it will be on the agenda for next
Yes.
time. If people, once you've looked at this, because I know several of us know this document quite well, If there are items that you have concerns or questions about, maybe you could send that to Sue, like, because then you could get that particular stakeholder, so you're not having to speak to that.
That's a good point.
I mean, most of these
Right.
things, like, I'm not gonna ask questions on roofs, but maybe there's a question on a tennis, that way you're not feeling like you have to.
And to credit Donna, she had looked at the document after our September 13th meeting, and we had a nice exchange of correspondence to get some things straightened out, that why is that here and why, So I'd love to be able to do that and not have somebody sitting here that you really don't need to see, or at least let them prepare. If it's roofs you wanna talk about, let's make sure he or she is prepared to talk about roofs or playgrounds.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, all right, we're sending this on, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next agenda item is budget development. More informational, I think. It's informational, it's action. I asked this to be put on the agenda. Myself and Dr. Farah have had 2 or 3 meetings with the superintendent over the last 4 to 6 weeks. And I asked him, as just a personal goal of mine, and obviously that's, him and I are on the same page, that I have asked the superintendent to, I guess, prepare a budget that is approximately a 3% cut from last year, which represents approximately $2 million from last year's $70 million, with limited effect to the academic performance and achievements that have happened over the last 2 to 4 years, and I'm confident that we can do something along those lines, because my thought process is that the Timberlane School District, it's got 2 years, I believe, remaining in its bond, and I'm hoping that in the next 12 to 18 months, we put together a program that makes sense to the board, the administration, and then more importantly to the voters, so we can make some much-needed improvements in all our facilities. So I have quite a few conversations with Dr. Metzler on this topic, and that's a goal, hopefully, that we're mutually working on. Now, there's really nothing here in front of you people here tonight, so I can sit back and say, well, take 10,000 off there and this kind of stuff. So it's going to develop. Obviously, the Budget Committee's going to do their thing. And before I forget, I want to, apparently we have 3 new members of the Budget Committee, which will be welcoming Dan next week. I guess there's been, because of different people's personal lives, there's new members of the Timberlane Budget Committee now. So the Budget Committee will do their thing, and I'm just hoping that, I think this, I can't speak for previous school boards, but I'm more concerned about budgets, I guess, than maybe other people who've sat in this chair before. So I put this on as an agenda item tonight so I could, we're now starting the season, the budget season, to get some, just some feedback on, from my fellow board members here of the, of how they see this year developing and what they think about my thought process or what their own thought process is. Mrs. Green.
Thank you. I'm thrilled that we have the expenditure report for the last fiscal year, but it isn't showing the fund transfers for the federal projects. And this is consistently, every time there's an expenditure report, those are always big fat zeros. Why is that?
Can I, let's just back up here.
Yeah, because the reason I'm asking is because right now, the expenditure report shows a surplus of over $6 million, 6.2 million. But I know it's not quite that big because the fund transfers aren't reported here. So this isn't really valuable to us because it shows that our budget, our general ledger budget was 70.4. I'm making a point though, I'm getting to a point. if we want to give some direction as to how much cutting we need to do, it's important to look at how much spending we've done in the past. And we have to have a fair idea of what that spending was, which is why, thankfully, you asked for an expenditure report. So the expenditure report we're given says we have a surplus of $6.2 million because the.
But we don't.
But we don't, and I'm asking, why don't we have the total final surplus?
Okay, let's back up here a second. At about 4 minutes before this meeting started tonight, Jeff went upstairs and got us this report.
Thank
More
you.
for review. Okay, more for review. This report was not given us tonight to talk about this topic.
But it goes hand in hand.
I-
It is relevant.
It goes hand in hand.
It's relevant, I think, if you've got a finalized document.
Well, my point is that we never get the finalized document, never.
Well, you will.
No, that line is always zeros. And
Well, again, I don't want to go down.
so I've asked a question and I would like to understand it because it's a puzzle to me. There must be a
What is-
reason why that
what is
line
your-
is
what
always
is-
zero.
What is your question?
The fund transfers for federal projects is always showing zero in all the reports I've ever seen. Why is that? Because I'm missing something. I don't understand why that is, because I know because of those zeros, I can't trust that surplus number that's on the bottom of this page.
Right.
So why is that always reported to us as zero?
So the very first question that I had tonight, and I had asked, what's the format that we're looking for these reports? It didn't take too long to have that determined, and there are a number of different ways to report on these. And so what we were talking about was it'd be helpful to have previous year expended, previous year budgeted, previous years prior to that expended for comparative purposes. So there are a number of different ways of looking at the numbers. When this report is run, our financial structure, if you will, is set up with a number of funds. We have our general fund, service fund, our federal, special education federal funds, PAC fund, and so on and so forth. And so those get consolidated into one format, if you will, one set of numbers. And there are a couple different ways that those are consolidated. And when those are consolidated, sort of brought all together, the federal funds and all of that all merge together, if you will, in that final consolidation. So that's when you see those numbers there. For budgetary purposes, they're included here because the expenditure is still there. And it's recognized at the general fund level. And then when we put all of the funds together, that's where you pick up on the actual expenditures. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does.
But all the other lines are accurate, but just that one isn't.
Because they're all, as a general proposition, general fund-related expenses.
So why can't we get an accurate idea all these months after the end of the year of our actual surplus?
I provided that to you, I believe.
Well,
This is really more just a look-see at our expenditures, to be able to say, well, look, in our regular education, we were here. If we were to have a broad and general discussion about where we may have opportunities or where this board may find opportunities, vocational education is, X relative to the budget. Athletics is here. Can we look at this a little bit more? How's this program doing? How's that program doing? That's the intent of what was provided, tonight.
Let me take the fall for that, because Jeff did ask me what we wanted, and this is what I articulated to you that I want, which is what I want. But I guess, and I'm a little confused here because I'm still not following this federal projects. What's confusing me on this, because I now understand, I see what you gave me, in this line, I have 34% remaining. Maybe that's a line, if I'm looking to cut the budget a little, that I might cut for next year.
We'll look at it, yeah.
But I think what Donna's getting to is that when I look at the bottom line at the end of the report, what I see is 70 million, and I see 6.2 million as surplus, but I know that's not right. So what is the surplus number from last year? What was the actual amount that we spent out of that budget. I mean, we don't have 6.2 left over.
We don't. And if you look
So-
at the food service fund and the federal projects fund, both are, we call them fund transfers, but really they're budgeted here in the general fund, but the expenses are picked up on the fund level. When they're all put together, that would make that 64 million be where it would need to be in line. And I believe that I provided that number. I don't have it, and I apologize, I didn't bring it with me.
You did, because they needed to move, they hadn't voted to move money into
The
We
capital
had it.
reserve.
retention fund.
Retention fund.
Right,
Yeah.
you did, and you had a one-page sheet, and you also showed us, and I was looking for that paper, and I couldn't find it again today, that what the bond payments were. But I thought that that number that you provided us when we looked at moving money into the retention fund was not the absolute end
Final
number.
end
But I-
number.
So even if it, regardless,
close.
I'm still trying to figure out what we spent last year, and I can't figure it out from here. We had a just to make it round figures, we had a $70 million budget.
Yep.
How much is left in the bank account? That's all I'm asking, I think.
After we
pretty fair question.
retained some, and after we did capital reserve, or before we did retention and before we did capital reserve?
Well, the capital reserve, those are easy numbers to pull out. The capital reserve was
250,
250 and the other one was, so, whatever. So I guess that's, we're talking about making, and I'm in agreement with the chair, a 3% cut to this budget, or asking the superintendent to show us what that's gonna look like.
Yeah.
But I'm still not really sure what I spent last year.
Okay.
Do you know what that number is, Jeff?
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Approximately, what was it? Wasn't it $1.5 million or something?
No. No, I
The
think it was,
surplus was a million, little over $1 million, I think.
it was higher than that.
1.1?
It was higher than that.
You're gonna be somewhere around 68.7, 68.8, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I guess we don't need to get, we
That's
do
what
need
I'm saying,
to,
so that leaves about $1.2 million, $1.3 million.
yeah, I think it was,
More than that, but. yeah,
But that's,
I
that'll
apologize
get
for
you in
that.
the ballpark.
Right, well, that's
Yeah.
what's being asked.
that's
It
what
wasn't,
being
it
asked.
was, it wasn't 64.
No.
Well,
No,
I
and
think
that's
we
what's
all know that.
Yeah.
And
I know, but
li-
that's
Life would
what's
be real good if all of a sudden you went upstairs and brought us
I know,
back
but
down
I-
the big check for
I
$6
think
million.
that's what that is getting at here, but this report is showing what I asked for in terms of what lines a high-level look at what lines had money left. But this grand total is not reflective of what the surplus was, so.
So it would be, it is always good to make sure that it's not just a matter of expenditures. It's a matter of what did we budget, what did we spend, where's that budget this year? There are a lot of different ways to look at it. I don't want to make it confusing. I want to make sure that the information that you'd like to see that would be useful in your review of the budget, we can get. And if it is more of a consolidated fund view, or perhaps even excluding those areas, just, limiting year over year, multi-year, whatever it is, let's have that conversation. I can very well appreciate the fund issue that is a very confusing thing, and if you just consider them as parallels, really, the general fund operates on its own parallel. Food service operates in its own, or vertical, and so on and so forth. And then for government-wide consolidation purposes, they do get all put together for our total reporting. They even have two ways that they report that from a financial reporting perspective now. So I'd like to know, if it is an expenditures aspect, if it is looking at surplus, or, gee, Jeff, where is the surplus coming from? What are we looking to get at? And I can get the report that we need, because we have functional codes, we have object codes that we can also report on. Don't make it complicated, but let's figure it out. Make sure we get the most useful information.
In light of the most useful information, and thank you for that, and I can see that you're eager to do that. So could we not have this report with those fund transfer numbers accurately reported, so that we have a full picture of all of the expenditures?
Yes.
Thank you.
I don't think that it would be in the same form or format as you're seeing it right now, but certainly I could match up, the expenditures there.
Where will the audit, where will the auditors make their adjustments, Jeff?
When would they, or when?
Where?
Where?
Where will they make their adjustments on?
Yeah, if they didn't like some encumbrance that we had, they didn't like a revenue they feel should be deferred, if they, there were a number of different areas. If they didn't like something that was in a grant perhaps that they wanted to move or shift or something to that effect, those are typically the areas that you would see if there were any adjustments, what those would look like. If we have a prepaid or some sort of a deferred expense, that may be something that they would like us to expense, or alternatively, if you have an expense that goes out, they may come in and say, oh, you've got a year contract here, you paid it in X, we want you to put on your books, recognize it at a later point. Those are some of the areas that they could have some changes on. So it really depends on what they'd like, what's hot, what's on their mind, because there are a lot of things that, quite frankly, aren't terribly material, and we have instances of that. Doesn't mean the accounting is right or wrong. They'd like to see it differently. They can see it differently. We have a contract for some piece of software. They'd like to see that, maybe it's an annual contract. They'd like to see the 6 months brought back in, put it on as a prepaid. Doesn't mean that's right or wrong or material. It may have a difference. It may make a difference. What are you looking to look at really at surplus, where the surplus is coming from, where we're off compared to budget, where we're off compared to budget this year compared to prior years, where we're at last year expended versus the budget season that we're in right now?
Well, I think here, obviously you want to, me personally, I like to go expended to expended, and then what makes up the surplus. So, yeah, it's like you're 99% there. This is like missing a half page to get. Yeah, and see, this is a.
If you said, Jeff, maybe put together maybe a schedule of where we would identify that surplus is coming from. Even do that.
Yeah, but I personally find the expenditures very helpful myself. Very helpful.
Me too.
And these are, still subject to audit. I didn't watermark them. I trust that they'll be treated accordingly.
Sure. Mrs. Sherman.
So I'd like to bring the discussion back to your initial question,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Boyle, which
Thank you.
was our feedback or our input into Mr. Boyle's suggestion to cut the budget or cut the requests by 2 to 3 million. And I would have
2 million.
loved it, or say 2 million. I would have loved it if you had polled the board, somehow before.
That's what we're doing.
So now you're polling the board publicly before you, so you want us to, I thought that's what you asked. And then
Yeah.
Donna got off on this
That-
chart, which
that's
is
what I'm
great,
asking.
but, okay, I'm not in favor of cutting the budget $2 million.
Neither am I.
I'm perfectly comfortable with cutting the budget by $2 million.
Okay. Mr. Sparrow?
I think, we've been researching this further and being a fiscal conservative. If we can do it and keep the quality education as we're doing now, I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not in favor of it.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of it.
Peter?
I need to look at all the numbers, including things like the contractually obligated increases for next year in the salaries. So when we talk about, when you use the term cut the budget by 2 million from this year, that's really not a $2 million cut. That's a $2 million plus whatever the increases in the salaries, baked into the contract.
Time and health insurance. stuff
Yeah,
like
so I really need to take a look at that and figure out what that really means. Because just off the top of my head, I think you're talking more like a $4 million cut.
I don't think so, but.
Again, that's why I said I need to look at the numbers.
And I guess, and here's my thought for people, to me, let's, I think I hope we're all politically aware enough that if you can't win your voters' confidence, you're not gonna get any of these warrant articles passed.
True.
I mean, got nothing to do with me. I mean, it's like, my family, we all go vote, so, So, the individual vote. So when what's going to happen is, probably, it won't be this year, it'll probably be the following year to put on the ballot a building program, and it's gonna require a 60% of passage. It's not even gonna be, it's not gonna be a simple majority, it's a supermajority. And quite frankly, I'm trying to, that's my goal, is to win the voters' confidence that we can show them that we're doing everything we possibly can, so we can, in the long run, move ahead. That's my view of the world. So, I don't think we live in the world that we can just keep saying, we'll just keep going, and then we'll tell them if we need 20, 30, 40 million, that's what we need, and expect people to go, oh, all you had to do was ask. I'm not seeing that. Mr. Sparrow?
I would like to just also add that, this is my third year, and the previous 2 years, and even the years before that, the district has been very generous in our increases every year, year after year, and given the superintendent and the administration, I feel, everything they need and everything that they've requested, all the time. So to look into this a little bit further and look into where the surplus is coming from and get the additional reports, and that's our due diligence. We should be doing this.
No, I agree with that,
So-
but.
So I want to just say I agree with you.
Well, I'm just saying that you realize in your previous couple of years, there's been no large warrant, there's been a budget
Right.
on it, there's been no,
Right.
that's,
But if they see us being fiscally responsible, they'll be.
that's what I'm
the
hoping. I
appetite
mean, there's no
hopefully will-
guarantee what I'm trying to do.
The
I'm just-
appetite
I'm
will
just-
hopefully will
I'm trying
be
to-
there
I'm trying to
to
stack the
approve
deck
that.
in our favor, that's what I'm
Yes.
trying to do.
Yep, I agree.
In the district's favor, that's what I'm
I
trying to
agree.
do. But, again, Mr. Sherman, so I think previous chairs have actually, from what I understand, have done similar things. I mean, myself and Kim, we meet with the superintendent every other week to prepare for a meeting, and then we bring stuff back for a few people, and I personally think I've given the superintendent mental time off, because I expect him to do his job, so I don't talk to him 1, 2, 3, or 4 times a day. When we have to chat via text or phone, we talk. So I don't call him at 7 o'clock in the morning, see how his breakfast was, and take it from there. And we have our bi-weekly meetings, and that's what. Then we bring it back to you people. That's how the agenda gets. No decisions are ever made at these meetings. That's, the decisions are brought back to the board, to be made to the board. That's all we're doing. It's not that sound about right, Dr. Metzel? So, that's what we're trying to do here, so. And by the way, and I recognize too, there's another board that comes in here next week, the Budget Committee, and they're gonna have they're gonna weigh in on their thing. And I honestly do believe that, the goal is the same. The overall goal is for the betterment of the district. So I don't think anyone's gonna be on the, would even serve in this capacity if you were not for the district. So that's how I look at it. I'm trying to move things forward and be positive. So that's we all have different ways to do it. That's all. That's what I'm trying to do. So that's why this was on the agenda. So there wasn't really anything to vote down or vote for up or down. I just want to hear some, because as we're now in the season, we're now in the 3 weeks of September. So over the next 90 days, we're going to be something's going to come, will have monetary value. And I also know that, especially because of our last topic item, the CIP, that we will make up the vetting the CIP sooner than later, so we can intelligently proceed and then get let the Budget Committee know what our thoughts are on that. Peter?
In addition to the request you made of Jeff here to come up with some other financial documents, I guess, for the next meeting, I would appreciate if you add to that, so I don't have to, well, maybe because I'm lazy, I don't want to go back through all the documents here. Ask him to take a look at the contractual, the human resource contractual increase that we already see in that budget.
in the unfunded liabilities you need to take into consideration?
No, not really, because that's really
Well,
a wishy-washy kind of,
you were chair last year, Pete, so you probably saw the same thing that I saw. That what happens is just, even with turnover of staff, and it's just the nature of the business we're in. So if a senior teacher leaves, I'd say 3 to 4 times a teacher comes in with, less experience, and they might be 10 to 15,000 less on the pay scale. So
Sure.
And so obviously, from a budget standpoint, you're not gonna budget people that are leaving. So that doesn't
But you
make sense.
don't know that.
Correct. What I'm,
So you got a budget for the people you got, right?
what I'm saying is, that's what's generating the surplus. So what I'm saying is, so contractually, I think we can go back, and you can probably come within 3 people. As sure as I'm sitting here, someone's gonna leave Timberlane this year.
True. But how do you budget for knowing which one and whether the person who leaves is replaced by a person who costs less money?
You just, by your averages, it's a budget, Sue. Yeah, because in your theory, you'd sit back and say, well, you know what, why don't we just put it up at 2 or 3 million every year? And then we can't do
Well,
that.
that's not, I'm not suggesting, I'm not saying that, don't put those
Okay,
thoughts in my
well,
brain.
To me,
but nonetheless, is that an okay request?
oh, that,
Fine. Jeff, would
yeah,
you do
there's
that?
nothing, yeah.
Can I speak to
Please.
that just really quick? The only one number that we would not, we talked about this today, is the greatest maximum rate, the GMR. We don't typically get that till late October,
We have some other insurance.
and that's a big number.
Sure.
It's been as much as 22% and as little as 7% on the benefit package, and that,
Sure.
it is a big number.
Of course it is.
So we talked about that today, to be thinking about a 10% increase in benefits. And we think that, we're just guessing. We have no idea. We're just guessing. And we don't have any source to give us any inside information about what it might be. I think by the time we get to the middle of October, we might get something before we get the official number.
And,
But like I said, it had been 1 year it was 7 and 1 year it was 22.
Sure.
And it's fluctuated that much.
and it's a non-negotiable. It is what it is.
So,
I get
but
it.
if 10's what we're looking at, just, I think we're conservative.
Sure.
I don't think that's too high or too low. I think that kind of,
All right.
Actually, may I? Sue, was that the number you were talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. I thought you were talking about the unfunded retirement liabilities that we have to report out now in our annual
Yes,
reports, and it's in our audited,
I was talking about the health care that.
yeah, that would be good too, Jeff. Just grab that and,
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you very much. So, administrative report.
Administrator's report, thank you. A couple of people touched on this earlier tonight, and I appreciate it. Last night on behalf of the school board and certainly the chair, we were able to congratulate our Hall of Fame inductees. I want to take this opportunity, too, to thank the Hall of Fame committee. Very, very difficult. It's been 22 years since our last athletic Hall of Fame, so we've had quite a few outstanding athletes, student athletes, over all that time. So, the 1971 baseball team went in, and then a handful of other really good male and female athletes. But it was just a great night, and very, very proud. Also want to thank our athletic director, Angelo Fantasia, who pulled this together. It was one of our goals, to recognize and celebrate excellence. The next one's planned for 2019, so they're talking about every other year. And so next year, we're talking about a Music Hall of Fame. So I know Mr. D is working on that as we speak. And then I know the principal, Mr. Woodworth, we had talked about an Academic Hall of Fame of, working on. So it's really a recognizing and celebrating excellence. But back to the report, it was just an outstanding ceremony, and I was just very proud to be there. And it makes you say, you need to spend more time with people like this. They're just some really, really great people. So I thank them all for that. As you've heard, or maybe not heard, typically when we open our school year, we have all kinds of drills, fire drills, emergency drills, and all the schools are conducting those drills as required by the state. We go above and beyond in some instances, and we typically like to notify parents after a successful drill has been completed. 22 German students arrived last Friday. They will stay with host homes and families until the end of the month. This is the first half of our two-way exchange with Germany. Next June, students from Timberlane will travel to Germany for 2 weeks, and attend school, followed by 2 weeks of touring Germany, Austria, and Poland. So we welcome those German students. Hopefully they're having a great time here. I know Mr. Richmond's here tonight. We have our TSSU and TTA monthly meetings have been scheduled, so we'll have an opportunity to meet with them and have the presidents and vice presidents share their concerns directly and hopefully help them address them. It was a really powerful presentation earlier this night. I know they're working out a lot of things in the trenches, but there's some higher level things that they'll bring. Facilities tour reminder, they've been really, really well attended this year, the first two, and so our final one is Thursday the 28th. That starts at 6 p.m. It's going to start in Danville, and then it'll be on to the Timberlane Learning Center at Sandown Central, and then finally Sandown North. So those tours are open to the public. We've had some people from the public, and most of the Budget Committee and just random other people have come with Mr. Gary and Mr. Dowd and others. So again, that's next. I think the Budget Committee, if you plan on coming to the Budget Committee, typically they shoot for like around 8 o'clock. This one typically is later because from Danville to Sandown to deep into Sandown, it just takes a little bit longer, and it's 3 schools. And so you just don't, they try to plan them in, but I think you're probably looking at 9 o'clock back here for the Budget Committee. But I don't know, they may be able to do that a little bit quickly. So that concludes my administrator's report.
Mr. Chairman. It used to be the case that the school board was notified when parents were notified about things, but we've been taken off the phone notification list, and I've asked to be reinstated on that, and it hasn't happened.
Which?
Phone notifications of snow days, exercises, whenever the parents are called by robocall or whatever the system is, the school board members used to be notified as well, and that system has stopped. And I asked for it to be reinstated, certainly in my case, and it hasn't been. So I think this is a problem, and I'd like it corrected.
Okay, so there's a,
Would it be well, Donna, I guess I get notifications from the high school because I've got a child in high school, so I guess you could get it from the elementary, the middle, and the high school.
Would you want it from all schools? Because I can tell you right now, I have 3.
That's what I mean.
And if I had it from 2 Sandown schools, a Danville school, and Atkinson Academy, I'm all set. I don't need, my phone wouldn't stop ringing.
Right.
Look, we used to get notifications
If that's what you
for
want, I'm
snow-
asking you if that's what you
I'm telling you
want.
what we used to get. We
But
got notifications for
I
snow
get one from
days.
Pollard when they had a shelter in place. I got one the other day, or today, about the lockdown thing that they did. My point is if you want one, do you want one from every school?
Yes.
Isn't that just a question of adding the number to the list or something?
I'll have to check. My understanding, it's the individual that disabled the account, not necessarily the district. So I'll have to look and see what account she had. There's little boxes you check. I've had people call, and then I go in and I look, and it's the actual person themselves that did it. But I'll have to check with technology on that.
I have never authorized a call, and it just came by way of being a school board member.
We've had several times when you've called in and said you're not getting notifications, and they check, and you are, and you don't know how to do it. So let me check
No,
with
that
that.
is not the case.
That is the
Donna,
case. It is the case.
let's
Well,
stop
just
this
insulting
conversation.
me. It's not true.
Okay, he is gonna check on this situation.
Thank you.
Let's just move forward.
Thank you. I asked for it before, and it hasn't been rectified, so I'm glad to know it will be rectified now. Thank you.
Oh, we'll look into it.
personnel report, please.
There is no personnel
No
report
personnel report.
this evening.
Great, thanks. Committee reports, I have a comment on that, but I want to go with the strategic plan first.
In your packets, Kathy, thank you for doing this at the last moment. The strategic planning did meet, and we don't have to take a vote on this. I wasn't sure how late our meeting would be running when we got to this point. We did meet, what day that was, September 14th, and the packet that's stapled together are the notes from that strategic planning process. Jay Vogt came, and we actually worked for a couple hours with him and kind of narrowed down how we were gonna put the strategic plan together. This is basically the outline of what it will look like. We're looking at 15 pages total. On pages 2, 3, 4, 5, this is the timeline that runs out through September of 2019 for this strategic planning process. So we're in September 2017. What we're trying to do at this point is move forward with some of these meetings, try to get PTAs and other organizations together to notify them. We talked initially about having one meeting at each school in the 4 towns, and then a meeting here at the high school, or high school, middle school, with, say, parents or staff. But we realized this is gonna be kind of expensive. Each meeting really is about $2,500 because these are the facilitated meetings with Jay, with community members. So after a while, we kind of came to the decision, to be fair to the outlying towns, that what we would do was have 2 meetings. We'd have kind of a north meeting, which would be with Sandown and Danville. Not that other people couldn't come, but it would be held probably in Sandown. I think they probably have Christie's gonna find out who's got the better facility. Danville does not have a big one. And we wanted to hold a joint meeting there and then have another joint meeting with Plastow and Atkinson. And then also have a meeting, this would be at a different date, at the high school, middle school, that would bring the faculty and staff together, but that would be 2 meetings back to back. The high school, middle school gets out much earlier, so that faculty and staff would meet with Jay. And then the elementary teachers coming in from the outlying schools would all come together, and then they would have a facilitated meeting with Jay, so that we could get all those groups together. So that would be a total of, say, basically 3 meetings, or 3 meeting locations, but 4 meetings. And that would be October, November. And then from there, we would begin to probably form larger subgroups, probably facilitated by the members of strategic planning who are part of the SLT. And we will work to draft the document and look to be presenting it and getting this in order by April, May. And then hopefully in the following upcoming year, communicate it out to the public. This would be in next September. And basically, at least what I envision now is that then the school board at that point next September would then look at how we're gonna go about implementing this plan. And that's where Brian was talking about potentially looking, because we know facilities is one of the goals of the strategic plan, is looking at bonding or facilities. That being said, not to get too far ahead of myself, but we need to consider in the 18-19 year budget that we need to put a couple $100,000, and it's a new CIP request, which can't really happen. I think we're gonna need to look at $200,000 to $300,000 for engineering studies to look at what will have to be done with facilities based on what's coming out of the strategic plan. This would just be planning engineering, essentially. I think it would be better to put that in the 18-19 year budget, and I guess, I don't know, Dr. Metzler, if you're aware of this, I think it would be prudent to put that in there right now as a placeholder in terms of planning for the future, and as we lay this out in the next several months, we'll have a better idea. So, that's kind of where we're at. The single sheet you have, we, as a board, approved $2,500 for that initial consultation with Jay. He put this together, he met with us, he did some review of, the district and our background. In order for us to have him at these other meetings, if you'll see in the single sheet that it says October, November 2017, the north meeting at the northern schools and then the southern schools, that would be 2 consultant days. And then we'd be looking at him taking all that data, which would be a lot of data, I would imagine, would be 1 day to organize that. That's optional. He could just send us all the summaries and then we could organize it. And then we've been looking at another consultant day for the faculty staff meetings. So if you flip this over, each consultant day is about $2,500. So we've already voted for $2,500. And again, we don't need to vote on this tonight. This is at the board's pleasure or discretion. We can think about this, but I will ask for a vote at the next meeting if we don't vote this today. I'd recommending, another 4 days at a cost of $10,000 to get these community meetings facilitated and for him to organize, the thoughts and action plans for us moving forward. Any questions?
Dan?
I have two questions. No, not really two. So I have, one question is as the facilitator, so before these meetings happened, did he tell you how to get people there?
No, what we had in this document, we brainstormed about how we could get, going out
I'm just
to.
worried, say worst case scenario you guys have when there's 5 people show up.
Well, that was part of the reason we talked about consolidating, say, 2
Okay.
towns. But we did a lot of brainstorming, Christy was there, about how to get people out there, because I know in the past, when this was done several years ago, there weren't many people. We talked about going out to the PTAs, especially at the elementary schools, because they tend to be very active, maybe the middle school, trying to engage those folks, going out to TMA, Timberlane Music Association, that's a big group of parents, sending people out or getting the message out through those organizations so that we could get people there. We did talk about pizza, that's another expense.
That's what I was gonna say.
I mean, if that's something, no, it does work, and I'm not opposed to it, it's not in here, I don't know, it's not huge money, but, if the board wants to authorize up to, I don't know, another $500 in addition for pizza at some of these
I
locations.
mean, you could say up to 1,000, you don't have to spend it all, but.
Right, I'd certainly think that would be helpful, but we are really gonna try to enlist some of those organizations that parents are involved in and get the word out and really encourage them and, explain to them, and we do have I didn't print out, there's a list of talking points to explain what the process is and why we're bringing somebody else in to help us work through this process. There's no predetermined outcome here.
Right.
I mean, when you look out at 19, we're talking about a bond. I mentioned something about engineering studies. That's not to say that couldn't be pulled out based on what comes out. It's just based on where we are facilities-wise, I could see that. But there are, 3 overarching goals, and I don't know as I spoke to that last time. One, the mission has not changed for the district, but we have facilities, we have 21st century learning, or student learning, and then we have culture, climate, diversity, and those are basically the 3 themes around which the strategic plan will be organized, and which Jay, when he facilitates these meetings, will be looking for input. And the input from the faculty and staff will also be invaluable in this, especially from the, perspective of moving forward in the 21st century for academic learners. So, I'm done. If somebody wants to make a motion, if you want to just defer till next time, it's fine.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize that $10,000 with an additional, what, you think 1,000 for food?
Yes,
I mean, it would be over the course of the 2 meetings. The third one is the one that you're gonna hold here.
Right.
Before we make that motion.
Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
When I looked at the numbers, I saw 17.5.
Well, it could go up to 17.5 if we ask him to do, some of these are optional. For instance, if he puts this if he goes to these 2 meetings, if you look at the first
Yep,
front page
yep.
here, that's 2 consultant days, because really by the time he drives up, facilitates these meetings, so on and so forth, he will give us the results. He does a lot of Post-it notes and, whiteboards and things like, poster
Yep.
board. If we wanted him to put it together in some sort of coherent document, he's gonna charge us another day. Christy, you can weigh in on this.
And unlike most consultants, believe it or not, he's saying, you don't need me for this stuff.
Yeah, he
You
basically
actually-
said,
You don't need me for this, you'll be
I
able to
just
do
want
this
to make sure
yourself.
that
Yeah,
10
so
10
that's-
plus was enough.
That's
all.
why, that's why
Okay.
I just put, that's why I'm asking for 10. I mean, certainly if we wanna go with more than that.
And then if she uses it, she needs it. So I'm in the theory that let's go up, and if you need it, you have it. You don't have to look for another board vote.
Okay.
If you see all of his sticky notes and you're like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to make sense of this, but you
Yeah.
have the ability to do it. I'm not saying you're gonna spend it all, but
Right. Well, then
I mean,
I
I'm in
would say.
favor of you having that, the committee having that flexibility.
Appreciate that. So my suggestion would be, the last optional day where he says design work group charge and work group planning, I totally would not feel we need, but I appreciate the fact that we may need, if we get a large group, it would take a lot to analyze.
So 15 plus pizza.
15 plus pizza might be a better number, if you don't want to address this again.
So it was 16.
Is that a motion?
Make a motion to authorize 16,000 towards to pay the consultant and to buy food for
Strategic planning.
strategic planning.
Second? I'll second.
Kelly's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So where would this money be coming from? What part of the budget?
We'd have to,
I'm just wondering if
No.
it's coming from our school board budget, that's all.
Jeff's last.
I wouldn't be opposed to having it come from the school board budget. I don't know if that budget line has enough funds in it.
And the other question I have is, I don't understand, how productive the meeting is gonna be with the teachers, because honestly, I don't think they can speak freely. What? I didn't hear you, Donna?
You can't speak teachers can't speak freely.
Really?
Hey, Ryan, how's that work?
Well,
Let me,
I'd rather just leave
Well,
that.
rather than putting that out to the board,
honestly.
no, I, having worked in an academic environment and having gone through strategic plans, I don't think this is going to be contentious in terms of what the teachers are articulating to Mr. Vogt, and I certainly don't think there's gonna be any sort of,
They'd be more insulted if you left them out.
well, yes, and this is why I wanted to make sure we included all, from elementary up. So Donna, I don't think that's a concern here. I really don't. I'm not. We're talking about a vision and
For the future of our kids in school.
moving forward, not something that's actually may or may not happen. So I don't think, and if they are concerned, please, Mr. Richmond, as the president of the TTA, please bring it to the boards, bring it to however the process is.
You can just add another question in the survey, if you're concerned about the strategic planning.
Well, no, if you feel there's some concern related to the superintendent, before we spend the money on this. Okay? Thank you.
This has nothing to do with the superintendent.
It does, because the president of the TTA speaks to the superintendent, and the superintendent speaks to the board.
Has everything to do with it.
okay.
All questions.
All those in favor? Opposed? So, passes 8-1.
Let's hope pizza brings in some people.
I hope so. We're
Yeah, I
really
really
gonna
hope there's
try.
not
Yeah.
five.
And I hope we can buy our pizza
Okay.
in district.
Yes.
Brian, are you,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, are you okay with, Mr. Dowd just finding the money somewhere in the budget?
Of
Well,
course.
whatever, you don't.
You're not
Yeah.
concerned with what
Not
line
in-
it comes from, as long as Mr. Dowd finds it?
No.
Correct. I expect it to be in the Timberlane budget. Yeah.
All right,
I'm
so can
good.
that just be, when you ask us to do something, that'll just be understood?
That's understood. Thanks. Now, other committees, I'm going to talk briefly about the policy committee, but.
Actually, Kelly will do facilities for me and safety. I'll do budget though really quickly. So budget met, and Kim, before you walk away, strategic planning, BudCom would like to put somebody on that.
Doesn't BudCom already have somebody else? Oh, on strategic planning.
Yeah.
Jim Paul's, he was just appointed.
Jim Paul.
Well, Eileen Doobie wanted to do it. Jim Paul wasn't at our last meeting, so I don't, I understand.
That's fine
But
with
that
me.
means you'll have a vacancy for an at-large person, right?
I'm not even,
We
we
don't-
do
we-
not have
we're
an
not
established
that good.
committee.
They're really just, they wanna know if they can put somebody on.
Well, see,
If you
we're
say
not
yes-
as good as the CIP people.
If
See,
you say yes, I'm
we're
gonna go back
more
to
of the
them and say,
Kumbaya group.
yeah. They were,
Document, we can give you a document.
So,
I mean, we went back and forth with some motions and we didn't need to make a motion. I said, let me ask.
so,
All right.
Dan, if you're crazy enough to show up, we're gonna take your input and put you to work.
believe you.
So,
No, he's looking for a budget, but,
that's what I'm saying.
no, but I need to back up here. When the strategic planning committee was formed, there was a membership established. What was the membership?
That's what I'm
Dr.
getting it.
Wilson was concerned that
I don't know
she
what-
wanted to make sure it stayed smaller.
I know, but the school board would have, didn't the school board initiate the committee?
Yes.
So doesn't the
Oh,
school
that was before
board
my time.
know
That-
what
that-
the committee
Wouldn't you take this
membership
back
should
to your
be?
committee and discuss it and then bring it back?
When's your next meeting?
Okay, when it was established, the school board, or
You
the
understand
committee.
what I'm asking.
Yes, I do.
I-
The committee decided, okay, and at least partly under Dr. Wilson's suggestion, to keep it small and focused, board members only for now, and has progressed to, as necessary, to create subcommittees that would have, could have a broader membership.
And, that's what we're still looking at. So you know what, let me just take that. Our next meeting is somewhere like October 16th or something?
All right, so not
It's,
before my next
I mean, I
one.
can pull
Okay.
out my phone, I don't have, I think it's the 16th or the 14th, so.
But, I
we
mean, I can
can-
tell her she can show up, obviously, she can show up, it's a public meeting, but.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah, I mean, and right now, as we said, Jim Paul's on it, so.
Right.
It's, our next meeting is at October 16th at 4 o'clock,
Okay.
which is a Monday.
Okay. Is that, are you good with budget?
Yeah, the only thing that they were worried about is the way our timeline works out for the joint meeting on Tuesday, November 21st. They're just not, we weren't positive, Jeff left, because of the way our meetings are going, we're not sure. That's still a tentative date, so we can't like lock that in as a joint meeting yet.
Okay,
Other than that, that's it.
thanks.
Sorry, Dan, what was that tentative date?
November 21st.
Thank you.
Yeah, that had been a tentative date along.
Yes, it's still tentative.
Yeah, okay.
Hasn't changed.
Kelly?
Last Tuesday, the 12th, we had a safety meeting. Basically got together with all the principals. They explained how they've been going through all their drills. They've been slowly working into it, but without haste. They've been getting all their fire drills laid out. They've been going through the schools, making sure everything is safe, appropriate. So far, so good. Everything seemed well. Nothing seemed like it was in need of any major attention. Seemed pretty good. Directly after that, we have facilities. There was a lot of focus on all the projects that had gotten done, seemingly more projects this year. A lot of attention to detail. There was a lot of accolades to the facilities staff and the custodial staff for all their hard work and all their excellent work. That seemed to be the main focus of that. And there was a few projects, upcoming projects, like some removal of equipment. It was kind of tied between safety and facilities. They were taking out some equipment that was deemed inappropriate, the way it was being used, so they were removing it. Because of the age of the students, the equipment that was there. So, again, nothing major, crazy.
Can I just jump in on, I must say, I thought the front of the high school, I was up there the other day, it looked amazing. The paint and everything, it's
The maroon
huge,
looks
huge.
amazing. The maroon looks amazing.
Yeah, it really did.
Burgundy,
Thanks.
somebody's gonna yell
Yeah,
at
it looked really nice.
The alumni's gonna yell at me, it's burgundy.
not-
I'm not gonna listen, I
it's not
got
crimson?
yelled at already once for calling it maroon.
Court of
Okay. Good.
Well, the CIP had their final meeting September 13th for the season, and we will reconvene in March. Wellness is meeting October 5th. The next school board meeting in the afternoon. Already sent that out. So you and I think that's it. I don't think-
Okay. Policy. Mrs. Green is the chair of the policy committee, but I'm going to try to, I guess, intervene here, because we were supposed to have a meeting tonight, and there was a little snafu that didn't get posted, and that's fine, but I think, well, we probably all know this as school board reps, that one of the most important things is actually a state statute, is policy. It's one of the duties of the school board, policy. We were unsuccessful in trying to get a couple of meetings this summer. So what I would like to do is, I would like the policy committee to meet the night of school board meetings, because they've been doing it every other meeting, but I'd like to, until we get caught up. So I'd like to, between 6 and 7 o'clock, the night of posted school board meetings, I would like to hear a motion to have policy meetings to occur, because I wanna make sure that way we can make sure they're posted and staff, everyone is noticed and properly is prepared, because I think we've missed a few here now, and I'm trying to help Donna out here to get this, where I think we're a little behind here. From what I understand, there are several state statutes that have been adopted that we have to align. So we're a little behind on homework, so nothing alarming here, but we have to get on this.
There is one listed already for October 5th.
Correct. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that it happens, instead of every other, instead of once a month, I want to, every time we meet and until we get caught up here.
I
So,
make that motion.
okay.
I'll second that.
Will there be, excuse me, will there be a definitive when you're caught up, or is it that kind of like?
No, that's why I look at it, we get caught up, because I think that's going to take, there hasn't been one.
No, I understand.
No.
I'm not opposed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just asking, like, what determines that?
No, I'm just, well, I think
curious.
I think the committee's going to determine that, but I think, as far as I think that, as far as I know, there's only been one meeting in the last 3 months. That sound about right?
Two.
So you skipped one.
You had two?
Okay.
So,
You missed one.
we're.
No, I know we were supposed to, I know we tried to get a couple, of,
Or any.
Last couple, well,
Yeah.
regardless.
What
Within the
about-
last 3 months, right,
so,
yes.
so what I'm trying to make this happen here. So, and I will, and then we'll have to determine, I'll chat with Stephanie with her new work schedule. She wants to stay on policy, or she wants someone to get, how that's going to be handled here. So, okay, motions made, seconded, all those in favor? Thank you. Are there any other committee reports? Great.
Oh, we had an issue with CIP membership. Can we talk about that, I don't. Do you remember? Yeah.
I got it straightened out, I can tell you about it.
Oh,
Because it's
Super.
not gonna affect us till March.
March?
okay,
Super.
okay, thank you.
I'll tell you about it before March.
All right, so, okay.
I have a question
We
on
got
the
it straightened
committees. Do we have, sorry, I should know this. Do we have an energy committee, and when does it meet? I know we had. Is it still ongoing?
I was on it last year. I think it met once.
Is it ongoing?
There was some drive around, doing stuff with the lighting.
Yeah, I wanted
So
Unitil to come in to give us an audit.
We did, and it
So, is it
was
ongoing?
unsuccessful with them.
I'm
They
guessing
weren't-
no, it looks like it's out of energy.
Okay, the reason, so I guess the reason I'm asking is because, well, Sue and I were both approached by the chair of the planning board in Plastow, with some, with a requested, with an offer, what did you request?
They have an energy committee.
They have an energy
in
committee, and-
Plastow, and we're wondering if they could dovetail some stuff maybe with our energy committee, and I think that's the
Right,
biggest question.
but if there, so if there isn't, then I guess the next best bet would be with facilities.
We did,
Am I?
I think we staffed the energy committee, but I don't have the list in
There's
front of
no
me.
activity going.
We did not disband it.
It's not currently active, but there are
Yeah.
members.
There are
Who's chair?
members on it.
Assigned to it.
I don't have the list with
Okay.
me.
I can take care of that, if it's okay, yeah.
I
think
know- I know
Am I
what-
assigned to that?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
don't
I think it was
remember.
inactive, and if anything was brought up.
Let me just,
yeah.
if it's okay with the people, I'll just refer Tim Moore to chair of facilities. Okay, because that's an ongoing, and they deal with
Yeah.
Great.
some energy stuff.
Can I, to
We
energy?
have a chairman established.
Yeah, Attorney Dowd and Tom Gary have been handling the energy,
Energy, yeah.
and they've been meeting with
Oh.
people, providers, and looking at contracts, and they've been doing the work. Hasn't been a committee per se, the board, but they've been doing that work.
Great.
Because
Super.
people reach out to me, and I've been referring to them to Jeff to meet with them. So it might be about fixed costs for electricity, it might be about solar panel, whatever, there's all different. But that has been ongoing, and just as early as this summer, he's had a few people in.
Oh, okay, I apologize, I didn't know that. Give him Jeff's name.
But, or if you have if we reconvene the energy committee, then we can do it differently, but the work
I don't wanna-
continues whether we
I
have
don't wanna
meetings or not.
confuse my planning board, just,
Okay.
you know.
And our energy committee, I don't wanna confuse our energy,
They are easily confused.
energy committee.
Okay. Before I get on, Brian, I mentioned you before the meeting, so you please feel free to leave. If you're welcome to stay.
I was going to in a couple minutes anyway.
Okay, all right.
It's late.
We're getting boring.
Is the payroll register or whatever someplace?
Right here.
Yeah.
Corner someplace.
Sorry,
It's all set.
didn't get over here.
Let's go through these minutes here.
Oh, reports of the school board?
Well, okay, we can do the reports of the school board now before we go to minutes, that's fine. Reports of the school board. We'll go right over to Mrs. Doobie first. We'll go right around the table here.
No, I'm good. I don't have
You're
any.
good. Awesome.
I'm good.
Well, I have a few things. I was at the facilities meeting on September 12th. I was at the CIP meeting on September 13th. On September 19th, I had the Board of Education hearing with my complaint concerning SAU 55. Then the next day, I was in Concord again to attend the study commission studying the legislation with respect to towns withdrawing from cooperative school districts. And that was a very productive meeting. The new chairman, Mr. Jim Grenier, is determined to put a couple of bills in. And he, as far as I know, has filed the bills today. He's filed 2 separate bills to clarify the law. And right now, they're being drafted by Legislative Services, and when they're finished, we will convene again and hammer out the details. So that was a very interesting meeting. One of the bills, as I understand it, is gonna have to do with the withdrawing town actually getting to vote on the withdrawal plan apart from the district itself. And the other one deals with the financial ramifications of withdrawal. So we're still yet to see exactly the details and the wording of those bills, but things are moving along there. There were a number of people in the audience for this meeting who came from districts who were struggling to withdraw from their cooperative districts, and it was absolutely fascinating, the kinds of problems that they were experiencing. I also want to announce that there is a special education seminar being conducted by the School District Governance Association with 2 speakers from the state who are experts on special education, and it is open to school board members. So if you would like to pass that down, thank you, I'd appreciate it. So here you go, thank you. And that is on October the 7th, that's a Saturday. So that's it for me, thank you.
I attended the second day of the college fair at the high school, and it was, I think, very good for the students. I was very pleased to see, well, the first day of the college fair was targeted mainly at 4-year colleges. And the second day, there were some 4-year colleges, UNH was there, second day. But there was also a good mix of trade schools and relatively small schools that do, 1.5, 2-year, trades kind of things. And also the military, and Portsmouth Shipyard, which actually kind of surprised me. They're looking for people. Very well attended. I did my bit meeting and thanking various schools for attending. They were very pleased with our students. They were very pleased with the way it was organized. Got no I didn't solicit complaints, but I did solicit, how can we change things? How can we maybe do some things better? You know, do you have any suggestions? And to a person who was like, no, we really like this. This is well organized, well planned, and anyhow. So it was well done. Thank you.
I have nothing. Kelly?
All set.
So,
I wanted to publicly thank the students from Pollard, the scouts from Plastow, the wrestlers from Timberlane, and Coach Julian and Principal Woodworth, who attended the 9/11 ceremony in Plastow, where they did honor Demetrius Gavriel, a former student and Marine who lost his life fighting against the tragedy associated with 9/11. It was a moving ceremony. The scouts were amazing. They stood at attention for almost 2 hours, holding flags, and they were just amazing. The students who read poetry, it was very moving. And of course, the wrestlers being there to honor a former wrestler and former student. It was very, very moving. And so I wanted to say thank you to all of those people that attended and our kids.
all right. Okay, see if we can, we have a set of minutes here, September 7th, to approve.
Making a motion to approve the September 7th minutes. You watched the meeting?
Yes, I did, and I read the minutes, they're
Okay.
excellent.
So you saw that that's approved if you
Yeah,
want to go to
and I did already, yeah, thank you.
I'll second.
It's already been seconded.
Oh, you
Kelly seconded.
call the question.
Do it.
All right. You good? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? 0-1. Okay. We're good. Entertain a motion, would you adjourn?
Oh, do we have other business? Do we just have other business?
I think I wanted, yeah, if you got something you want to talk about here or something?
Well, for the next agenda,
Yeah.
I would like to have an agenda topic of the board and superintendent communications, generally, because I again expressed last time how I don't appreciate learning about things from the district through press releases, and I feel that the communication to the board is not what it should be, and I'd like to discuss that. And one of the examples is that we learned through social media of an incident at the middle school, and then the following day at the high school, there was a lockdown drill. So, I mean, it's not appropriate that the board was not notified of these things.
It's perfectly appropriate. You weren't
Okay.
notified. You guys weren't
So
notified.
I would like to put that on the agenda so we can air it out, because it is a problem for me.
Okay. What else you got?
I second that.
All right.
Is that
it?
I don't know what's so funny, Dr. Metzler.
All right.
I do.
Guys, listen.
Excuse me, I think that's really disrespectful. I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that at all.
Let's maintain our professional composure here,
That
people.
would be very nice.
So, all righty. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
We be gone.
Thanks. Night.